Good morning. Welcome to the May 22nd County Commission meeting before the break. And we have a very large agenda today. And we have a quorum, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. And if you would, take a moment to pray for a good outcome today. Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Tabaya?
Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have minutes to approve today, April 24 and May the 3rd. Do I have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Barfield, a second.
Second.
By Commissioner Isnardi. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We're going to move into resolutions, awards, and presentations. And Commissioner Isnardi, we're going to go ahead and let you move with yours.
Mr. Tunges?
Ma'am.
We're going to move Mr. Tunges, you can come right here, to the front only because he's a teacher and he has a class waiting on him. So thank you for coming, and I appreciate it. I was really excited when asked to do this resolution because, you know, before I read this, I'll just say that Mr. Tunges taught two of my children at Westside Elementary, and not only was their time with you memorable, you are a fantastic teacher. I mean, I can't say enough about what you did, the changes that you helped my son with math that he struggled so desperately with, and you made class fun. You had a standard and you kept to it, but yet you made class very fun for those kids. And they, to this day, when we drive by Westside, they want to come by and visit, and I tell them it's not appropriate, but they wanted me to tell you both publicly thank you, and my oldest says you are absolutely his most favorite teacher, so I thank you for having such an impact with my kids. But
Wait, you're embarrassing him. He's turning red.
no, he's not. Mr. Tunges does not embarrass. Let's just say that. You'll always be Mr. Tunges to me when you're 60, so. And this is not related to you teaching, but maybe next year we'll have you back for that. Okay, resolution. Whereas on March 24th, 2018, Westside Elementary showed off their ninja skills in the school's first ever obstacle run to benefit the school's running club and PTO. And whereas Robert Tunges, the school's running club coach, formed Team We, from staffs, teachers, parent, volunteers, students to create a 1-mile course that involves 13 obstacles with names like Hey, 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 Frogger, and Flytrap. And whereas the course started at the school's bike rack and ran along the sidewalk until entering the wooded area that sits between Bayside High School and Westside Elementary, and then ended with an army crawl under a tarp to finish line where students received a medal. And whereas the event drew over 150 participants, including students, parents, siblings, and grandparents, and raised $800 to support next year's obstacle run, as well as other school projects. And whereas Coach Tunges wants to continue to share his passion for running and obstacle races with all the students at Westside Elementary and encourage them to stay fit and active while having a lot of fun. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby recognize Robert Tunges for his hard work and dedication in organizing and implementing Westside Elementary School first ever obstacle run, done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 22nd day of May, 2018 AD. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you have anything you want to say?
I appreciate it, and the kids loved it, and it's all about the kids.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If the University of Central Florida Extension Services would come forward, you have a presentation I believe you're going to allow us to participate in. Sir?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Gus Kerner, and I'm with the University of Florida IFAS Extension in Brevard County. I'm a 4-H program assistant in the department. And this is my colleague, Andrea Lazari. She's a 4-H agent. I'd like to introduce also two young people from R.L. Stevenson Elementary, Hannah Adams, and from Surfside Elementary, Gavin Shoemaker, who's handing you 4-H pencils right now. Recently, we had our 4-H Tropicana speech contest finals. This program was developed in 1952 by a Florida teacher, was quickly adopted by the Tropicana Juice Company, and they quickly aligned with University of Florida IFAS Extension in all of the counties to help kids develop better skills in public speaking. Over 8 schools, 45 classrooms, and 880 students participated in Brevard County Tropicana this year. And as a result of the Tropicana's dedication to this program, it's evident in the confidence displayed by the young people in making or preparing extemporaneous speeches later and in their professional careers. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Hannah.
Have you ever heard of a blobfish? Probably not. But if you have, right now you're probably thinking of a pink, ugly blob. In fact, so many people associate blobfish with ugliness that the Ugly Animal Preservation Society named the blobfish their mascot. But, contrary to popular belief, blobfish are not just blobs that swim around. In fact, they can't even swim. Blobfish are just harmless creatures, and fishing nets are catching them, and they're dying. So how are these fishing nets catching and killing blobfish? Well, fishing trawlers. Trawling is using fishing nets on the seafloor. When a blobfish is lifted from a trawling net, they die because of the sudden loss of pressure. I think people don't care that much about blobfish because they don't know much about blobfish. Blobfish are carnivores that spend their entire lives on the seafloor, living on the seafloor off the coast of Australia. They can't swim because their flesh has such low density that they can hover above the ocean floor. But the most frightening fact about the blobfish is their numbers. Sadly, there are only about 420 blobfish left in the entire world, and this number is declining rapidly. So why do I care about blobfish? I care about blobfish because they need more support from people like you and people like me. Blobfish can't save themselves, so they need people to save them. So how exactly are we saving the blobfish? Currently, the only legal action to saving the blobfish is a ban on deep-sea trawling, but it has not been passed yet. You can help save the blobfish by supporting this ban and spreading awareness. Save the blobfish!
Have you ever been on an airplane and had the question, how does this gigantic 800,000-pound piece of metal full of people and luggage stay 35,000 feet in the air without plummeting into the surface of the Earth? Luckily, there's some science behind all of this. For an airplane to fly, you need 4 key ingredients. Thrust, which is the propulsion of the aircraft. Drag, which is loss of energy through mainly friction. Lift is what puts the plane into flight. And gravity, the force that pulls every object toward the Earth. Thrust can be anything from a little rubber band airplane to a large rocket. Thrust is known as the force which moves an airplane through the air. When you see a rocket launch in person or on TV, remember that the rocket would still be on the ground if it were not for the propulsion, also known as the thrust. As well as all of the weight on the airplane, there is aerodynamic drag, also known as air resistance. One kind of drag is called parasite drag. No, that does not mean there's a giant parasitic creature hitching a ride on your aircraft, although that would make your flight a lot more interesting. Parasite drag is actually skin friction drag, which means when your plane is flying through the air, it has to move through trillions of particles that when they rub against the surface of the airplane, they gain energy, causing drag. Lift is very important if you ever want to leave the runway. Lift is created when the wing is tilted up and more molecules hit the bottom of the wing rather than the top, causing high pressure below the wing and low pressure above the wing. What's cool is you can actually calculate lift with this simple equation. Lift equals the coefficient of lift times 1/2 rho, the atmospheric density factor times the velocity in feet per second squared times the total wing area in square feet. Roger that? Last but definitely not least, gravity. And I'm sure everybody here already knows what gravity is, but just in case, gravity is a force that attracts a body toward the center of the Earth, or any other physical body having mass. As a result of understanding the 4 key elements of flight, airplanes have been designed to be safe. Although, in the outrageous event that your engines fail when you're in flight, there is a 1-to-10 ratio, which means for every 10 miles you go forward, you only lose 1 in height. That means you can land at the closest airport instead of diving toward the ground and becoming another crater on the Earth. Forget about the downside of flying a plane, plus the chances are 1 in 11 million, making flying the safest mode of transportation. We should thank scientists, engineers, and pioneers who have learned how to overcome gravity and drag by building these incredible airplanes.
Thank you to Gavin and Hannah for these speeches, and we have one parting gift for you.
Yeah. Is it a blobfish? Aw. Thank you.
I need that later.
Yeah.
Need that sugar later.
You guys did a really, really good job.
Thank you.
Very proud of both of you.
Thank you. Is Miss Lila Jones Tisdale here? Good morning. How are you? I didn't even know we had this until I read the resolution. Thank you for doing this. I'm going to go ahead and read the resolution, and then if you want to address us, we'd love to hear from you this morning. Whereas the freedom to read is among our greatest sources of lifelong learning and enrichment, and whereas Brevard County's Talking Book Library serves more than 2,200 citizens whose low vision, blindness, or physical disability does not allow them to read the printed page. And whereas Brevard County's Talking Books Library relies on the U.S. postal letter carriers to deliver audiobooks, magazines, equipment, videos, braille materials to these patrons. And whereas the Postal Service letter carriers often provide exceptional service to the Talking Books letter patrons, such as setting up audio players, reading the titles of the book, and other reading materials. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby proclaim Linda Jones Tisdale as the Brevard County Talking Books Postal Letter Carrier of the Year. Ordered, done, and adopted this regular session, 22 of May 2018. I make a motion to approve this resolution. In a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, ma'am.
I just love what I do.
Thank you so much for that. You do a great service in ministry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Aw.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, Commissioner Barfield.
And along with that, I'd like to recognize Deborah Martin for her role for 30 years of the Talking Books program. And I'd let Jeff Thompson speak, but we just thank you for all you've done, because I've heard so much about this program, and we just thank you so much. Jeff?
Thank you, Commissioners. I just want to say that Deborah Martin leads our Talking Books program and has for a number of years now. This was a department that used to be 7 people. It's now her and 1 part-timer. She does so well with it that the Library of Congress gave us an award for her work. And but awards aside, what a great service it is. I'm very proud to be affiliated with it and the work that she does. Recently, in the last few years, one time, just a brief example of how it is. She had an elderly woman call up and say that she had received a photo that she needed to see, and Deborah said, "Come on down, we can help you." Somebody brought the lady in. They used an assistive device to project the photo in a very large, make it very big so she could see it. The lady immediately burst into tears and said it was the first time she'd seen her grandchild. That's the kind of work that Deborah Martin does every day, and that's what makes it so meaningful and why we're so proud of what she does. Thank you.
Okay, let me read the resolution then, and we'll provide that to you. Whereas Deborah Martin began her career at Brevard County in 1988 as the supervisor of the circulation department at the Port St. John Public Library, and was immediately recognized for her diligence and for her ability to recruit and retain volunteers. And whereas in 1996, Deborah Martin was promoted to the Brevard County Talking Books Library, providing services to the blind and physically handicapped citizens of Brevard, and where she served with distinction. And whereas in 2008, after budget cuts resulted in the elimination of 5 of her coworkers, Deborah was the only full-time staff member in the Talking Books department and was promoted to lead worker. And whereas during her leadership of the Talking Books department, Deborah cultivated a robust and dedicated staff of volunteers, strengthened with the relationship with the U.S. Postal Service, and created a quarterly newsletter to keep her patrons informed. And whereas Deborah Martin attested to by her many accolades, commendations, and awards, working at all times with enthusiasm and integrity on behalf of our blind and handicapped citizens, truly exemplifies the meaning of public service. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Brevard County Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby recognize, thank, and congratulate Deborah Martin for 30 years of service to the citizens of Brevard County. Done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 22nd day of May, AD 2018. Madam Chair, I make a motion that we pass this resolution.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Congratulations and thank you.
Okay, next is proclaiming the week of May 19th through May 25th as National Safe Boating Week. So I'd like to ask from the Sheriff's Department, Commander Greg Purden, Lieutenant Byron Keck, and Sergeant Dennis Casey to come down. And Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, Lieutenant Andrew Zimonis, and Officer Chase Platt, and BM1 John Metacrew, and from the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, Jack Miller, U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary Liaison Officer, Port Canaveral, Robert Trebell, Flotilla Commander, Donna Miller, Flotilla Commander, and Bill Cox, USCG AUX Public Affairs Officer. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to go ahead and read the resolution, and then we'll let one of y'all speak, or maybe more, or whoever would like to, okay? Whereas boating season approaches and Florida leads the nation in registered vessels with approximately 1 million boats and over 20 million boaters using our waters annually. And whereas Florida leads the nation in the annual number of boating accidents and deaths, with the leading cause of death being drowning, and with 70% of the operators involved in accidents having no formal boater education. Whereas the National Safe Boating Council is kicking off its 2018 Wear It Safe Boating campaign to educate the boating community about wearing life jackets and other safe boating practices, noting that Florida has one of the nation's lowest life jacket wearing rates of only 6% of our state's boaters wear one while boating. And whereas Brevard County has a multitude of organizations involved in helping to educate the public, including the U.S. Coast Guard and the Coast Guard Auxiliary, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, the United States Sail and Power Squadrons, and the Brevard County Sheriff's Office of Agriculture and Marine Unit. And whereas these organizations offer educational opportunities to the public, not only during Safe Boating Week, but throughout the year, using methods including, but not limited to, vessel inspections, about boating safety classes, boating guide pamphlets, fire extinguisher seminars, educational exhibits at marine openings, and boating shows, classroom presentations, and in-the-water life jacket demonstrations. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby support the goals of the National Safe Boating Council and proclaims May 19th through the 25th of 2018 as National Safe Boating Week, and urges all those who boat to wear your life jacket, learn more about safe boating practices, get your vessel safety checked by the USC GAUX or USSPS, and always act responsibly while on the water. Done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 22nd day of May, AD 2018. Madam Chair, I make a motion that we pass this resolution.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
I'll jump in here real quick, and then I'll let the Coast Guard and FWC jump in if they want. Commissioners, thank you very much. I apologize, I'm at a disadvantage. I didn't bring Sergeant Casey any flowers this morning, so I'll buy you lunch, I promise. But I will tell you, we have great partnerships out on the water with FWC and the Coast Guard and our partners at the port, and keeping people safe is priority one. So thank you for recognizing that, and we appreciate all the support we get from you all the time. Thank you.
I'll get up and speak for the Coast Guard Auxiliary. So last year, Florida again led the nation in boating deaths at 70, as well as the nation in damages and property. It was about 700. In the cases of boating deaths, fatalities, 87% of that, 80% of those were drownings, and about 83% of those cases, the people that drowned weren't wearing life jackets. So, we help with boating education as well as the rest of the gentlemen here. And, we want to get the word out, and we really appreciate the county commissioners supporting the National Safe Boating Week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith, I believe you're next, sir.
All right, I'm going to read a resolution here for retired Major General John Cleland. So all those folks that are interested in having something to say or standing by him, come forward here. Okay. I want to thank all of you for being here, and I'm going to read this resolution, and then however many of you want to have something to say about the Major General, you're welcome to take the microphone. Whereas Major General John Cleland retired from the United States Army in 1980 after 37 years of active service. He enlisted at age 17, and after service as an enlisted man, was commissioned a second lieutenant of infantry from the Officer Candidate School. And whereas he served in World War II, he served in Korea, and he served in Vietnam, commanding all levels of infantry units. Major General Cleland served on the Army General Staff and the Joint Staff during peace and war, and he spent 13 years overseas, 6 of which were in the combat theater. Whereas his decorations include the Distinguished Service Medal, the Silver Star Medal, the Defense Superior Service Medal, the Legion of Merit, the Purple Heart Medal, and he was awarded the Combat Infantry Badge in all 3 wars, and is a member of the U.S. Army Infantry Hall of Fame. And whereas since moving to Florida in 1983, Major General Cleland made tremendous contributions to the local community and to the state of Florida by serving both civic and military organizations. In addition, he found time to participate as a leader in his homeowners association and his church, as a speaker at patriotic events, and as a strong voice for veterans. Whereas, on November 12, 2013, retired Major General Cleland was inducted into the inaugural class of the Florida Veterans Hall of Fame, whose focus is on the inductees' post-military contributions to the state through civic, business, public service, or other pursuits. Whereas on October 25, 2017, at the age of 92, this true American hero passed away. The Board of County Commissioners and a grateful community would like to honor and recognize him in perpetuity for his lifetime of service to our county and our country. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby name the soon-to-be-constructed bridge over the Florida East Coast Railroad on Pineda Causeway, the Major General John Cleland Memorial Bridge. Let this serve as a reminder to all of the life of this great public servant. Done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 22nd day of May, 2018. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve this resolution.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful of you to give this recognition to John. And it will be greatly appreciated by his family, too, sons and daughter. Thank you very much.
And Commissioners, General MacArthur once said, "Old soldiers never die, they just fade away." And although Major General Cleland physically has faded away from us, his memory lives on in the spirits of all the veterans that are represented here on his behalf. And what a tribute to his life and to a life well lived than to have this bridge dedicated in his honor. And he epitomized the Army values of loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And so as a result of this bridge, his memory will live on. Old soldiers never die, they just keep driving on, and his memory will as a result of this bridge. So I thank you guys so much for this proclamation and this resolution and naming the bridge in honor of a great man. And I also want to thank Clara for being here, because her and General Cleland, when we first started up our ROTC program at Bureau High School, They were our first guest speakers at our ROTC ball, which meant so much to our cadets, and they still talk about it today, and this is 7 years after the fact. As a matter of fact, it meant so much to our cadets. I've got one of my cadets' families that's sitting back here in this back row that thought enough to come, and they wanted to be a part of this because it meant so much to them that General Cleveland would present their son with a Medal of Achievement for being in ROTC. And again, a tribute to not only General Cleveland, but his wonderful wife, Clara. So thank you guys so much. Thank you.
The submission to put John Cleveland as the in the Veterans Hall of Fame was restricted to 10 pages. And trust me, there was enough material there for 20 pages. Now, if any of you are ever in the area of Tallahassee, please go to the Capitol building, go into the Rotunda, and it's on the west side, and there stands John Cleveland as the first member of the Veterans Hall of Fame. Thank you.
I've known John and Clara Cleveland for 32 years now, and he and I and Clara were together on the Return to Korea programs a number of years ago, and the visit to Panmunjom was not on the schedule, but he got us to visit Panmunjom. He brought us up there, and it was very good. Thank you.
Is Mr. Thomas with y'all? You already? Wonderful, thank you.
All right, so if you folks will come over here, we'll take a picture. Did you hear that?
Ms. Cleland invites anybody, all over you to come over there and have a cup of coffee in her home. Thank you.
Okay, now we have a resolution for Nathan Hewitt, Eagle Scout. Would Nathan like to come forward, please? It's not here.
You want to go ahead and go to the next one first?
Do I have another one?
Stood up.
You're doing
I got stood up too.
you're doing a presentation on the EDC. Commissioner Smith, do you want to go ahead and do number J while we're waiting on the Eagle
Sure.
Scout?
Okay. John Bartusek. And Al, everyone. Martha Flynn, Marie Doyle, Abby Bartusek. This is it? Okay. I'm going to read this, and then I'd like to hear from you folks. And thank you for being here. Whereas 4-H is a community of young people across America who are learning leadership, citizenship, and life skills. And whereas Mary Bartusek spent more than 20 years serving as a Brevard County 4-H club leader to hundreds of Brevard County youth, including her 8 children, helping to nurture their confidence, leadership skills, and sense of community. And whereas Mary Bartusek is a reminder of the incredible impact a caring adult can have on the development of a child. And whereas Mary's legacy continues through the Mary Bartusek Brevard County 4-H Club Endowment, established through a gift provided by the Brevard County 4-H Youth Foundation. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, does hereby recognize Mary Bartusek for her dedication to the youth of Brevard County and for her legacy that will live on in perpetuity through the Mary Bartusek Brevard County 4-H Club Endowment, done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 22nd day of 2018. Madam Chair, I move to accept this resolution.
We have a motion and a second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. We appreciate the opportunity to speak briefly today. My name is John Bartusek, and I'm Mary Bartusek's oldest son. With me this morning are 2 of my sisters, Martha from Satellite Beach and Marie from Kissimmee. Watching on your video stream are 2 more sisters, Margaret and Mary in Oregon, our brother Larry in El Paso, and our brother Tom, who is a Rockledge resident. We're proud to add that Tom is a 28-year employee of Brevard County, and he is representing TDC at a Jacksonville event this morning. Also with us in spirit this morning is our father, Elmer, our brother Joe, and more than a dozen grandchildren and great-grandchildren. If you lost count when I named my siblings, there were 8 of us. You know that from that alone, our mom loved children. Her full-time job was her family, and she poured immense measures of love and energy into it. Our mother was a 4-H leader for more than 20 years. More than 500 children were in her 4-H clubs over the years, and at least 6 of them went on to become officers in the Florida 4-H State Council. We are proud of her foresight in establishing the Brevard 4-H Youth Foundation in the 1970s, and we are delighted to see it today transition to the Mary Bartusek Brevard County 4-H Club Endowment. If our mom were here today, this is the moment she would stand up and shoo us away from the microphone to avoid any more family boasting. So we thank you for your time and for the honor and recognition you give her and the 4-H program today. Thank you.
Nobody else wants to say anything? Okay, we're good.
We have a time certain, but if y'all don't mind, I'm going to finish presentations first. Commissioner Barfield? You're still smiling at me back there, so I figure we're okay.
Next, we'd like to do a tourism economic update and outlook. And I'd like for Dr. Slotkin from FIT to come up. And our tourism director, Eric Garvey. And before that, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Garvey. He is the Secretary of State, Secretary of Transportation Elaine Chao has appointed Eric Garvey, the Executive Director of Florida Space Coast Office of Tourism, to serve as the Chairman of the U.S. Department of Transportation's National Advisory Committee on Travel and Tourism Infrastructure. It's a 2-year term, and his new role began April 19, 2018. This is a major accomplishment for our county and for our area, to be the head of the new Travel and Tourism Committee. So congratulations, Eric. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you
Appreciate
very
all
much.
you do.
I appreciate that.
It's a
Looking forward to
really
serving.
big deal. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I told the staff, I think we're the only place in the entire country that has a spaceport, a cruise port, international airports, and interstate highways run through our community. So I'm looking forward to serving on that committee. But today we wanted to give you just a very brief high-level update on the state of the tourism economy. Last week we celebrated National Travel and Tourism Week with our annual tourism luncheon. And I could brag all day long on our tourism business here. So what I did is I brought along Dr. Mike Slotkin to provide his insights. We have an ongoing program of work with Florida Tech with ongoing data gathering, and so Mike and his team can do regular analysis and publication of different insights into the hospitality and leisure segment of our economy. So with that, I'm going to let Mike do his thing. And this is it.
Right there. Thank you, and good morning, Commissioners. Having been here in the past when some of the data wasn't so favorable, it's nice to talk about favorable data for a change. All right, so quickly, so I guess time is tight today. This is about 5 or 6 slides from a presentation we made at TDC about a month ago. So we'll look at bed tax data, then we'll look at how you can use that in conjunction with some of the estimates that we've come up with to give an economic impact for a sector of tourism or a segment of tourism. So if you take a look at this figure right here, this is your actual data that's reported from the county in terms of bed tax collections. I go back to the fiscal year 2006 because that's when the tax collection changed to 5% on the sale. I've excluded numbers from 2006 to 2013 just so there's less congestion on the graph. And the truth of the matter is it doesn't really matter much. If you look closely at that, you pretty much had stagnancy over that entire period. There's about a 3% increase in collection overall over that 8 fiscal year period. And then you see the rebirth and the regrowth and the recovery from all those economic disturbances that we had, and those nice increases from 14 to 15 to 16. In 17, you still had an increase, but the increase slowed down, and that shouldn't have been unexpected. At some point, your rate of growth can't hold up at the same rate, and that was my attitude going into 18, and then all of a sudden we have liftoff again. And there's a variety of reasons why that could be. I don't think we'll hold the same growth rate into the future, but it has been a great year so far. And in fact, the increase, this only goes up to about the first 5 months of this fiscal year. The increase in revenue over the last fiscal year already exceeds what you got in total from fiscal year 2017 in terms of an increase. So that's a pretty strong year to date. Here's a trend line I created a while back where I was looking at data going back to 2006 and doing a rolling average to see where we were before we had the housing bust and financial crisis, and to try to kind of project what would happen in the future. And everything held up reasonably well as you get to 17. You can see the recovery that happens through the years. And once we get to fiscal year 17, you can see we start straddling along that trend line again. And then lo and behold, beginning in fiscal year 18, we're lifting off once more. And the rate of increase through the first 5 months is basically at a 17% rate, which is wonderful news. Here's the actual percentage increases through the years. So as you look into the latter years of recovery, 14, 15, 16, 17, you can see those high rates of growth. And then what I thought would probably happen, the rate of increase would slow down and move back towards more of a long-term trend, and then fiscal year 2018 is the kind of surprise, unexpected that we love to have. And so this has been, again, a wonderful year, and very interesting when you actually look at the composition of where this is coming from. I mean, we know that Cocoa Beach tends to be the anchor of tourism. When you look at the increase over last year, most of that increase is actually coming from the Melbourne, Vieira, Palm Bay area. So if you look at that increase, which right now at the first 5 months was about $900,000 of additional collections, most of it is actually coming from Melbourne, Vieira, Palm Beach. When you get into the Melbourne Beach area, you lost some capacity with the hurricane. Cocoa Beach already had a pretty high occupancy rate. Their increase over the year, I think, is about 7% as such. But, you know, it's sort of a changing picture. Now, I don't know that that's necessarily going to continue at that rate, but it's going to be interesting to see how this picture changes as the year goes on, and particularly as we get into 19 with some of the new demand drivers like USSSA coming on board. And then finally, what can we do with this? So I always add this slide. I come in every 3 or 4 months and do a presentation for Eric. Say we use a conservative projection of about $15,650,000 as the bed tax collection for this year. If we divide by the 5% rate, that gives me a gross output of about $313 million. Anything you see in red up there is actually estimates coming in from our project. If you use $656 of lodging spend per party and divide it by 4.6 room nights per party, it's about $142.60 per night. If you factor out the taxes that are collected on that, that's a room rate of about $127 per night. If you divide that by my gross output of $313 million, you come up with about 2.45 million room nights. If you divide those 2.45 million room nights by the room nights per party, you figure out about how many parties there are, 534,000. And if you multiply that by the gross spend per party, which again in red is one of our estimates, that's a direct expend of just under $800 million. And usually in economic impact analysis, most of you are familiar with the concept of the multiplier. In most economic impact studies I'm doing today, I'm yielding a multiplier of about 1.6. So I'm going to use that as my baseline for this. You're just under 1.3 billion. We call that DTAB impact because it's tourism, but it's accommodation based. There's a lot of other segments of the tourism industry that don't come into play here. This doesn't include day trippers. It doesn't include the shadow market. You know, the people that are actually staying lodging but not paying the bed tax. This doesn't include people that come into town that are visiting friends and family. This is strictly an economic impact of people that come into town and are procuring lodging, what that means for the community. And that's basically the lay of the land as I see it right now at this point in time. Thank you.
Okay, and then quickly on to just what we're seeing ahead. I always like to give context. Florida is the 100-pound gorilla in tourism leading the country, and the good news is that we're leading the state in terms of our peer markets, which you can see on this chart. This is data that's compiled by STR, which is the leader in our industry for compiling hotel data. And through April, year to date, we're at a 12.1% year-over-year growth for RevPAR. That's revenue per available room, which takes away the changes in your hotel inventory. So it's an easy way to compare market to market. And you can see we're ahead of the pack there. And then because our tourist development tax is collected off the room revenue, I also like to look at just the gross room revenue growth. And here you can see it's at 13.7%. And again, leading our peer markets in the state. And then as we look ahead, STR also provides us forecasting data. And so, you know, as you leave for your June break, I thought you'd like to see that the summer ahead looks very good. Our projected RevPAR increases is, you know, in the average is around 6% year-over-year growth through the summer, which is very good. And this is clearly the impact of USSSA's programs as they bring in a lot of youth activities through the summer that will take up all excess hotel inventory. You can see it starts to fall off in our growth rate in August and September. And what we do as a marketing team is we go in and start looking at opportunities to drive that number a little bit better than what it's showing. In terms of marketing, I think I have to click a mouse here to get a short video going to just show the quality of the types of things we do from the marketing perspective.
Welcome to Space Coast Live. My name is Jenna Wood, and today we're taking over Brevard Zoo.
And there you go. And we also publish all of our information on the county's website, including all of our financial information and contracts. And then we also have a wonderful publication that wraps up Dr. Slocken and his team's work in a seasonal publication, tourism report that we distribute to your offices and also the entire industry to help spread the good news and the information that we're able to compile for the benefit of the tourism community. So that's my report, and happy to answer any questions, but I know you're on a quick time schedule here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank Mr. Garvey for all his hard work and all his efforts, and it's not just him. It's he's the face and he's the mover, and the shaker, I might add. But there's an awful lot of people that he works with to get these things done. And Mr. Slacken, that was very informative. I just wanted to point out, I've talked with the tourism folks since we've had the change in the state law about how tourism monies can be spent. And, you know, I'm a big proponent of the Indian River Lagoon. And so I've been talking to them about ideas and ways maybe they can help support us. And they've been in full agreement to do that. I've asked Mr. Garvey to come up with a plan to help the lagoon and complement what tourism is doing. That Indian River Lagoon's a big attractor for tourism as well, as Mr. Slotkin has mentioned many times in the past. So I think it works like a hand in glove. But I also understand that the county attorney's office has to make a change in the ordinance to adjust the language so that the local tourist monies can be used for the Indian River Lagoon. So I've asked the county attorney to do that. So after we come back from our June break in July, we'll be talking about that more. And but I'm really excited because I think a fully integrated plan between our natural resources and our tourist development guys and the Indian River Lagoon Council, we can really make some major impacts on this Indian River Lagoon. So I want to thank you for all the work you've done, and I look forward to working with you closely to promote the Indian River Lagoon as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we have a time certain as you're coming forward, Mr. Peterson and Mr. Burkett. I would like to go ahead and, if we could go ahead and just make a motion to approve the consent agenda. If anybody wants to pull any of those, I can send people off to work here for the day. Commissioner Tobias, did you have something you want pulled, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to vote no without comment on 2B2,
2B2,
2D4,
2D4,
and 2D6, please.
2D6. Any other commissioners would like to? Okay. So on that, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the items Commissioner Tobias is voting no to? A motion by Commissioner Smith, a second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We're now going to move into public hearing 4B investments. Sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. I was kind of struggling with all the accolades and presentations this morning. It was like, okay, to jump into the business part of it. So I'm glad you did the consent first. The board appointed the investment committee and the county investment advisor to discuss alternative ways in the county's investment program. And this particular item, this public hearing, is to change the ordinance 2016-14 and approving the multi-asset class portfolio investment policy. Amending the ordinance, the list of permitted investments will add multi-asset class investments, which includes domestic and international equities, emerging market debt, real estate investment trust, treasury inflation protected securities, exchange traded funds, and mutual funds of registered investment companies. These items are ways of diversifying the county's portfolio and trying to earn better yield. These type of investments can generate higher returns, but they also bring on higher risk than those instruments that we currently have in the portfolio. The financial information and policies that generated this recommendation is based on business models along with the consistent levels of cash the county has carried and not expected to be spent. The funds utilized in this new portfolio is not expected to be used within 5 to a 10-year time horizon. The board's approval of amending the ordinance and the new investment policy will allow public financial management to add this class of investments, which will be between 5 and 20%, to the long-term portfolio, but it will not affect the short-term funds, which are managed in finance. If it pleases the board, we do have PFM here to speak to this item, as well as we have a couple of committee members here.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, do you have any questions before I call comment cards? Mr. Daniel Serio? Mr. Starkey, you're on here also if you'd like to.
Okay, so Mr. Starkey was here for questions. So I just want to make a quick statement. So first and foremost, thank you very much. My name is Daniel Cioro. I'm a licensed financial planner with Edward Jones in Cocoa. I just want to say, take this opportunity. I know we're having a changeover here in November, potentially, at least with one seat, to say thank you for the opportunity to serve in this organization. I think our organization together and collectively have worked arm in arm, to come to a concise and collaborative decision here. So we have precedent with regards to how this has worked for other counties in the past, and it's something that we certainly see as a positive initiative. Also want to say that if you look at historically, over the last, say, 80 years, we've had 66 up years and 12 down years as far as market return. So while this certainly adds a measure of risk, it's a very calculated measure of risk and an uncertain risk. On average, we're going to exceed the market. Also, as when you look at a certain and specific risk, because again, our action is uncertain risk, a specific risk is the loss of inflation. So inflation, consumer price index, typically 2.5% to 3%. So that being said, investments that are guaranteed to yield less than that is a certain risk to assets. So this certainly takes care of it. So again, market I'm going to be brief. Market, over the last 80 years, 68 up years, 12 down years. So that shows the averages are on our side. With that consistency and that logic, I ask you, what can the county do with the compounding growth of a few $1 million here and there? And I certainly look forward to that question being answered in the future.
So that's all I have. Thank you for your time and effort.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I have no more comment cards unless we need to ask Mr. Starkey some questions. You came around and met with all of us and did quite a presentation.
Yes, Commissioners. If you would like to hear from PFM, who's the county's
Are they-
investment advisor,
Sure.
and they're also the one that will be managing this pool.
Hello again.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Steve Alexander. I'm here with Kali Decine. First of all, I want to say it's been a pleasure to work with the Brevard County and the staff and the investment committee. This is a topic that we have been reviewing, discussing for about a year now. We went over very detailed analysis and discussions, and we are been looking at the cash flows for the county, understanding this is a long-term strategy for the long-term assets. And the idea is to help minimize overall risk and to increase diversification, and it is appropriate for the longer-term assets. We have also worked very closely with the investment committee to design an investment policy specifically for this strategy, so it's a very detailed policy that will provide the appropriate guidelines and the permitted investments. So we look forward to any questions that you may have as we move forward on this.
Thank you, sir. Commission, do I have a motion?
I make a motion we approve the ordinance to amend approval of the ordinance amending 2016-14.
A motion by Commissioner Barfield. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you for all your hard work.
And we also have the policy to be approved.
Okay.
It's in the same action.
Okay, do you need a separate motion for that? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the policy?
I make a motion we approve the policy.
Okay, I think I got a motion by Commissioner Barfield, and Commissioner Smith jumped in with a second before the first. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you again. Thank you for your work. We're going to continue into public hearings because of time situations. I'm going to go ahead and do public hearing item A. It's a vacating.
Commissioners, this is a vacating request to resolve a encroachment. It's a part of a public utilities and drainage easement. We've received no objections to the petition.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Isnardi. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. And with your indulgence, Commissioners, I'm going to go ahead and move item E up. First, Savannah's.
Good morning, Commissioners. Congratulations on no longer owning the Savannah's at Sykes Creek Golf Course. Very happy and proud to represent the Savannah's Homeowners Association, Sonia Bossinger, as their attorney. We are here today to petition the Commission to establish the Savannah's at Sykes Creek Community Development District and to adopt the ordinance establishing a community development district over the real property legally described in Exhibit 2 that was attached to our ordinance and also to our petition, naming the initial members of the Board of Supervisors of the district, establishing the name of the district as the Savannah's at Sykes Creek Community Development District, designating the purpose of the district, designating the powers of the district, and providing for severability and providing for an effective date. So we look forward to moving forward with this next step to have the Savannah's at Sykes Creek Golf Course be a profitable venture and a fun place for the public to continue to play golf now that the community development district that we're hoping you establish today actually moves forward and can run this golf course. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, do we have any questions or do we have a motion? I do. I'm sorry. Thank you. Lee Kontnick? Mr. Kontnick, are you here? Lou. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. If you state your name and address for me.
Sure.
My name is Lou Kotnick, and I live here in Melbourne. And I'm here to support the moratorium on the septic tanks. But really more than just supporting the septic tank moratorium, I'm really asking you to be community leaders, to lead in our restoration, not to turn your backs on where we are.
Sir,
Did I get it on the wrong?
We had a wrong letter on your card, so if you want to, I'll have you come back very first
Okay,
when
I'm
we
sorry.
do it. I'm sorry.
I wondered about that.
I had to get help from my friends up here what to do. Thank you, sir. Okay, we have no cards. Commission, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, it passes 4-1. Commissioner Tobias in opposition. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
You got that nay in just in time, sir. Okay. We are going to move to item. Which one has the most cards?
We're good.
Okay, we're going to move to item 4D. Fire services.
Commissioner, are we going to come back to 4C?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This one looked a little shorter, so, okay. Yes, Commissioner Barfield.
Yes, I'd like to talk about Savannah's 1 second. All that has been done is amazing, and there's been a lot of people who have done a lot of work. We've done something that's way out of the box to get this done. But I want to give special recognition to the legal who took care of this, Matt Sousa took care of this.
Yes, it was Matt's office.
Yes, and he did a tremendous job, and I just want to make sure he gets recognized for that.
Chief.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Mark Schulmeyer, Fire Chief with Brevard County Fire Rescue. Sitting next to me is Deputy Chief Dennis Nieder, and we are bringing forward the Fire Service Special Assessment in a public hearing. And so, sorry. And so before we do that, I'd like to ask permission from the chair. We handed out the resolution. The resolution has been corrected, and I'd like permission from the chair and the board to correct any Scrivener's errors that we had made in that document, and I'll explain this to you right now. And so if everybody looks at page 3, 2H, there was a change of the word of to or. That was page 3, 2H. On page 8, there was some added language to section 7. In terms of the hazardous materials operations team responses and the fire inspection fees for service not being included in this item. On page 9, there were some dates changed in the title to October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2019. And on page 12, there are multifamily rates in section 2, and the 2,501 square foot to 5,000 base area in the multifamily is actually $487.44, not the $579 that's listed on there. And those are the changes.
Thank you, sir. You were also, are you doing a presentation, sir?
That is correct.
Thank you.
So, in a regularly scheduled meeting at the end of last month, we brought forward the 2 options for the fire assessment for the board to choose from. Option 1 was a 15% increase across the board with no CPI moving forward. Option 2 was a 6% increase, and CPI each year until the fire assessment, until the 15% was met. And the board chose option 2. And so we sent out a notice to property owners, to residents in the unincorporated areas of Brevard, as well as our contracted cities, in compliance with state statute. And I have to apologize. When those notices were sent out, there was a lot of information on them in order to comply with state statute. A lot of information had to go out and be in that notice, and they were deemed confusing by some, and rightly so. It's a lot of document to read. The print's kind of small, and most of that confusion was with the actual posted rate. And so I'd like to clarify. The presentation you're going to see is the same presentation we presented last month, with the addition of, I want to show the charts. And I'll use my house for example. The posted rate, people were under the impression they were getting double charged or charged an exorbitant amount, when in reality, if you look at my home is a 1,600 square foot home. I was previously paying $177.87. With the 6% increase, I'm paying $188.54, which is an increase of $10.67 per year. Many people thought they were getting charged an additional $188 for that home, and so we do apologize for that. It probably could have been listed a little bit better or expanded on a little bit better. But again, one of our main concerns was compliance with statute and getting those notices out properly, so we didn't have to do them again. And so these charts that are up on the screen are also available in that back room. If you see Pam or Sally back there, we do have charts where people can actually go up and take a look and see exactly what their increase will be. And that might shed a little bit of confusion, or might shed a little bit of light on some of the confusion with those notices. And so the fire assessment, what we're talking about, our operation is twofold. We do fire and EMS. And so the fire assessment does fund the fire operations side, which is what we're talking about today. And if you look at the history of the fire assessment or our revenue in general from 2008 to 2018, not much has changed in 10 years. As a matter of fact, there's been a slight reduction in the fire assessment, which was that 15% of spending down reserves over the years. That fire assessment funds 22 fire stations, 17 fire engines, 5 ladder trucks, 21 brush trucks, a hazardous materials truck, and a technical rescue or heavy rescue truck. And if you look at the chart on the bottom, although the assessment and our revenue has remained relatively flat, call volume for those fire apparatus has steadily gone up over the course of time. The original fire assessment, as we know it today, was developed by Burton Associates back in 2009. The assessment revenue was decreased by 15% for the purpose of drawing down reserves, fire rescue's reserves, and was to be readdressed in 2012. That did not occur due to the downturn of the economy, and we've since been trying to find a right time to address it. The reserves that we've been drawing down are down to about $2.1 million. We are using reserves at the amount of about $1.1 million a year to meet operating costs. If you look at the chart showing the red showing operating revenue, our expenditures, and the blue showing operating revenue, you can see that one is a little bit higher than the other. So that just shows that we are using our reserves to fund operating costs. And with that, I will entertain any questions.
Commissioners, I have a few comment cards here. Do you all have any comments for our call cards? Okay, just so if you guys, he explained, we had a lot of emails and calls this week, people thinking the rate was going to be an extra $187, but as you can see, there was a misinterpretation of the data sent out. So the average homeowner is going to be paying less than a dollar per month extra to get the reserves built up. So I'm going to start calling cards. If you would come to the front and be ready, I'm going to give 2 names. The first one will come speak, and the second one will come get ready. Janice Gregory and Sarah Ann Conkling, if you would come forward and be ready.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Janice Gregory, and I live in Cocoa. First, I want to make it clear that I support the fire department getting additional funding. It is desperately needed. My concern is the current plan for an across-the-board 6% increase, as those with larger homes are undertaxed and those with smaller homes are overtaxed. This is taking from the poor to subsidize the rich. It is morally wrong. We have postponed appropriate funding. Excuse me, I have to take off my glasses. I can't see anymore. We have postponed appropriate funding for far too long for a service that we hope we will never need, but may need at any time. Lack of appropriate funding can have catastrophic results. In Brevard County, we are blessed to have a wide variety of different size homes, reflecting a wide variety of incomes. Multiple tiers and higher fees for homes that are bigger than 2,600 square feet is a more fair and equitable plan, and I urge you to consider it. Larger homes require larger resources and cost more. It is only fair that the homeowners of these larger and more expensive homes pay a higher fee. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Sarah Ann Conklin, Reverend Earl Medell. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for your kindness in considering this issue. And as my good friend just said, this discussion and the objection that many people will be bringing this morning is not against increasing the fee. I personally want the fire department to have every cent that they need. They saved my life, so if they ever need money, you're going to see me in front of you saying, give money to the fire department. And I don't really care what it's for, really. I just want them to have everything they need. I want us to have the best EMS, the best fire department in the state, and whatever they need to get that, I'm in personal full support of. So no confusion about that. What I am imploring all of you to do today is to make this a fair increase. I was actually involved 10 years ago in the formulation of the original increase, which as it was originally proposed was a $212 across the board increase for all owners of residential homes. I was successful in fighting that. Stockton Witten was budget director at that time, just to tell you what kind of ancient history we're talking about. And Howard was our county manager. And what happened at that time is that it was sent out to consultant, Burton and Associates, who came up with a tiered plan to implement different sizes of fees for different size homes. And at that point in time, it looked pretty good, the tiers. Now, since then, we have had somewhat of a boom in construction of larger homes. We do not have the same distribution of homes that we had 10 years ago. Many of the categories have changed, not just the larger homes. I have sent you all a spreadsheet basically demonstrating that if you are to, what I feel, fairly allocate this fee amongst people who have homes bigger than 2,600 square feet, which are large homes. Can we all agree they're larger homes? If that fee tier is expanded in conjunction with Burton's previous methodology, it will bring in almost all of the current revenue you need. There is less than 1% that would then be an across-the-board increase. You're going to hear some objections to this, I'm sure, from county managers and others. One is that there's going to be no time to do this. We need to do this right now. The Burton report 10 years ago was submitted on August 18th of 2008. Burton needs 90 days to do this. I have this on personal authority. So if you were to decide right now today that you wanted Burton to revise those tiers, it would take them 90 days, and you would have the report by August 22nd of this year. We obviously were able to act on it 10 years ago in that time frame. I don't see why this year would be so remarkably different. One of the more upsetting comments I've heard in relation to this proposed increase is that it's only $10. If I have a prayer for every person on this commission, it's that each of you realize what $10 means to a family living in poverty in Brevard County. It might be nothing to most of us who can go out and buy lunch for $10 or less, but $10 to a family living in poverty is whether their child gets a birthday cake or somebody gets a pair of new shoes or gets to go to the doctor. We do not need to be subsidizing the rich by overtaxing the poor in Brevard County. We do not need to do it. It's morally wrong. There's a way around it, which was undertaken before with Burton and Associates. Mr. Burton is still alive and well. He's still at the same phone number. He's still willing to help. And there's, in my mind, no moral, ethical, or administrative reason to not do this the right way. You have it in your power to do that. If you vote right now today that we want a more fair increase, that we want to tax bigger homes at an appropriate rate, you can do that today. You can do that instead of a 6% increase, and you can do it in time to get it in the budget for this year. So I would implore you to do that, to take that step, to be moral actors on behalf of our county, to not tax the poor, to subsidize the rich. We greatly need you to be beacons of light in that regard, and to take into consideration the people who I will always be in front of you talking about. Commissioner Infantini, who used to vote on nothing I wanted, hardly ever, she voted with something I wanted, would always say to the board, Sarah Ann, if you're here, you're always talking about the poor, you're always talking about us doing more for the poor and being fair to the poor. And if you see me in front of you, the chances that I'm going to be talking about that are about 100%, and today is no exception. So I beg you, please send this back to the overpaid consultant, and he is overpaid, and let him tell you how to rearrange these tiers so that you can get a fair assessment instead of the one that's proposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Reverend Earl Medley and Philip Sastek, you'll be next. If you would come to the front, sir. Is Reverend Earl Medell here? Okay. Philip Stasek. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. It's a pleasure to chat with you. I'm Phil Stasek, North Merritt Island, and speaking on behalf of the Space Coast Progressive Alliance. We strongly support the words that you just heard. We strongly support the idea that this should be a more progressive assessment. And in fact, we also strongly support our firefighters, our paramedics, our EMTs. Our operations in that regard have been underfunded for a long time. We've spoken to you about this before, and we know that you believe that as well. We know that you believe in improving the quality of firefighting services in this county. The key is just the proper way to fund it. So we strongly encourage a more progressive program rather than the tiered system that's currently envisioned. And again, we literally cannot say it any better than Sarah Ann just did. Do you have any questions for us?
No, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Karen Mosier and Gail Meredith, you'll be next. And then John Faulkner, you'll be after Miss Meredith.
Good morning. My name's Karen Moser. I live in the town of Malabar, so I don't have a personal stake in this regarding my own home, but I am here to speak in the interests of fairness and equity, and I would echo what Sarah Ann just said. I support giving the fire department the resources they need. I understand they also have a pension plan to fund, and that's the sort of thing that can get shortchanged when money gets tight. But I would urge you to add tiers above 2,600 square feet, because with the houses that are being built today, that is considered relatively modest in most neighborhoods. There are a lot of houses much bigger than that. They have to be more complex if there is a fire. So it's only fair that you add those tiers, and that will reduce the need for the across-the-board increase. There's an across-the-board increase right now, given the fact that you've got this tiered system cut off at 2,600 square feet, would just exacerbate the unfairness. So I would endorse what Sarah Ann just said, and please do consider this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Gail Meredith and then John Faulkner.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Gail Meredith, and I live in Satellite Beach. I'm here to support what Sarah Ann suggested as well. I think it's very important that you treat the rich as you do the poor, and that the poor is not asked to subsidize the rich, and you work out a system to give a good fire services their appropriate budget, but without creating a burden on the poor. Many of us during the last budget hearings were shocked by how the county was treating the poor. The business with the hotline and the Meals on Wheels and the cavalier way that people who are in terrible need are treated in this county is truly shocking, and we want you to get your act together. And this is a good example of everything you do. You should look at how the situation of the poor, because we have some dire poverty here, and we'd like to see you be sensitive to it and appropriate in your policy making. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. John Faulkner and Darlene Hillers, you'll be next, please, if you would come to the front.
Good morning. My name's John Faulkner, and I live in a district area that's not identified by the 4 cities for the increase in fire and rescue services. The assessment that has been put in front of the board assesses a property by its construction technique, and secondly, assesses a property by its size. Its size represents money. So it is assessed in accordance with its value. So the fire and rescue people are trying to serve the community in terms of needs by size, and size represents money. So there does not need to be a distributed sliding scale for tax. The second thing is these things that we've seen from the initial paperwork that was sent out and dated 1 May saying that there was going to be an increase in the cost associated with this ad valorem tax was sent out on the 1st, reached most homes on the 3rd. I created a petition and I forwarded it to the board here, the chamber, and in it I had 14 signatures. 11 of those 14 signatures did not receive the notice until the 3rd, and 2 on the 4th, and 1 never received the notice. So we're in not one of the city's things, but then it said you had 20 days to write a response. You can only write a response to something that you see, something that you get in the mail in this case. And that would say that the response could also come tomorrow if you received it on the 3rd. So there's no way for you to make a decision today until you see all of the decisions that have been put in front of the board, and that can't happen until tomorrow. The other thing is there are 97 or 98,000 properties that are not listed in those 4 or 5 properties or property of their cities that are identified. So there's 87% of the people not represented by the boards that, the city boards that have put this on the agenda for review. And so those people need to be represented, and they're represented by the county, Brevard County. And they're not represented by cities that have put the contract in front of them that are mentioned on the distribution here. So I think there's reason for delaying the action. There is already consideration for the value of the property, and I think we should reconsider how we tax, when we tax. I looked at my particular assessment that was sent out, and it was 9.8%. It wasn't 6%. And I have that documented, and I documented it in my submittal. So there's a lot of ambiguities in the financial position, and that ambiguities need to be addressed before we put it in front of everybody else. I would be glad to review that with anybody that wants to review that, and I am more than willing to show you how the assessment is not consistent with the documentation that showed up in the papers that are distributed, in the documents that the Brevard has put in front and on the internet for people to review. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Is there
sir.
any questions?
No, sir. Darlene Hillers and Teresa Parrish will be next, ma'am, if you'll come forward. Ms. Parrish, are you here? Okay, thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Darlene Hillers, and I live on North Merritt Island. And first of all, I would like to say I support giving our firefighters a raise in pay. They provide a vital service to our community in protecting our citizens and properties, often at times risking their own lives. What I would like to address is the fire services special assessment rate and how that is determined. It is my understanding the rate for each property owner was determined by the square footage of the home beginning at 400 square feet and ending at 2,600 square feet. I have learned there are 11,000 homes in Brevard County that are larger than that, yet those homeowners will only be assessed according to the rate based on the 2,600 square footage. It seems to me it would be more equitable to add more tiers to the formula, thus allowing the owners of the larger homes to pay their fair share of the assessment. Also, I have learned, based on how larger homes are constructed, with higher ceilings and more open floor plans, fires in those homes are more difficult to control or contain, which could be a potential threat to the lives of our firefighters. One last point I would like to make. By adding more tiers to the assessment formula, it would generate more revenue for the county, which could result in more money for needed equipment for the fire department and pay raises for our firefighters. Thank you for listening and giving us the opportunity to voice our concerns.
Thank you, ma'am. Teresa Parrish, Mark Ewald, you'll be next, sir, if you'd come forward.
First of all, my name is Teresa Parrish, and I'm one of those people that, I guess her name was Sarah, spoke of. I'm a senior citizen. I get the senior citizen exemption, the widow exemption, and the homestead exemption. But I only get $751 a month from Social Security. So everyone I know misunderstood the paper too. They thought that was the actual part that we will be paying. So that was very confusing. But in my case, with what little bit I've got to live on, I would pray you please do not pass this increase.
Thank you, ma'am. Mark Ewald, Pamela Castellana.
Thank you. Mark Ewald, Snug Harbor. First of all, thank you for all that you guys do. Appreciate it. I just have 2 points. One, I have no problem with a rate increase. I just hope that some of the money will go towards paying our first responders higher salaries and better benefits. It's no secret that we're losing a lot of our qualified people to neighboring counties due to better pay. And I think we need to do something to increase the pay so we can keep hold of some of these people. And second, people in larger homes are paying more already. We pay more in taxes. We pay more across the board. And also some of these, all this talk about rich versus poor is kind of disconcerting to me. A lot of the bigger homes and some of these newer homes are up to better fire codes and will probably, never require any fire intervention at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Castellana. Tom Dickman, you'll be next, please, if you come forward.
Good morning. Congratulations on saying my name correctly, Ms. Pritchett. And my name is Pamela Castellana. I live here in Melbourne, Florida, and I'm very grateful to be a part of a community that is so engaged. So thank you for allowing us this freedom to speak. I've been doing some thoughts also on the idea of a regressive tax increase versus progressive tax increases. And I will always oppose a regressive tax of any sort. Flat taxes sound so great in theory until you look at the fact that they're really not very fair. The salary for Brevard County Commissioners is $58,145.36. And I'm assuming many of you either have, in fact, I know many of you have other jobs or other sources of income as well. The household average income in Brevard County, household, all family, is $48,483 per annum. The average income per capita is $27,360. We have 14.7% of our county living in poverty. One is right here. That's according to Sparing's Best Places to Live. The average rent in Brevard County for a 3-bedroom home is $1,255. And according to Nubio.com, the average cost of living aside from rent is $2,977, which is $50,784, which is more than the average household annual income. So I highly support the idea of expanding the tiers over 2,600 square foot homes. As we've all discovered, they're going to use more of the fire resources as well. And by the way, we do want you to get your resources, if not more. I can't believe you've been living on no increase in 10 years. You sound like a Brevard County teacher. So I appreciate your time. I hope you'll seriously consider the idea that fair tax is not fair, it's regressive, and it's not who we are as a county. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thomas Dickman and then Bruce Moncrief.
Hi, Tom Dickman. I live in Vieira here, and I support the fire department. You guys do a great job putting your lives at risk almost every day. I just think there could be another way of handling an increase in the fire service by impact fees, generating income from all the multifamily properties that are being built in this area right now. That could provide probably a good portion of what you're looking at. I totally misunderstood paragraph 2, as I think many people did, and I've heard increases of $1 a month, $10, and I have an assessment that says $282.82. So I'm totally confused. Hopefully I'll pick up a report and figure it out for myself. But that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moncrief, Carol Hamilton, you'll be next, ma'am, if you'd come forward.
Thank you. My name is Bruce Moncrief. I own some property here in Brevard County, and I too was misreading the document as it came to me, and I maybe should be brighter than that, but it came across that I was going to be assessed lots of money, and I'm thinking, why is there a major assessment happening that's built into the property taxes? And I was thinking, if there's a need for additional fundings for the different things that the fire department provides, then it should be built into the property taxes, and it should be thought about in increments. It was looking like almost a double taxation there, and it was causing me to come here from Orlando, where I live, but I do own some properties here that are affected by that. And as to the equity of the assessment, I would venture to say, and I don't own many houses or anything that's really over 2,500 square feet or whatever, but I do think that property taxes based on a percentage of property values, and the assessments that are coming on larger homes are larger assessments, and the property taxes are based on millage based on the larger assessments, and they are paying a larger amount. I agree with the one gentleman earlier also that said that fire codes on larger homes and stuff probably require less attention from the fire department and the rescue units to be coming to the larger homes than the smaller ones. So I think that a distribution based upon the current market value and millage is probably appropriate. I appreciate your time to be able to address you, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Carol Hamilton and Catherine Eli, if you'd come forward. Okay, wrong card. Thank you. Carol Eli, Catherine Eli, I'm sorry. And then Richard Webb, if you'd come forward, please, sir.
Good morning. I'm Catherine Ely. I live in the Diana Shores section of Merritt Island. We have houses that run from probably 16 to well over 2,600 square feet. First of all, I want to say I support raising revenue for the pay and the benefits of the fire department, and I support them in every way. But I believe we need to raise revenues. To raise revenues, we should assess very large homes so that the owners of modest homes are not subsidizing the owners of homes over 2,600 square feet. So I think we in Diana Shores represent every size that would be the whole range of what would be affected in square footage in our community. So thank you for your time, and thank you to the fire department for everything they do.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Webb.
Richard Webb. I appreciate the fire department and what they do. They've come to my house on several occasions and in rescue situations. But I would propose that what we see with fire rescue is feather bedding. The reason for this unfair labor practice is to keep people working in jobs that are no longer necessary, and what's not necessary is to have fire trucks chasing the rescue truck down the street every time somebody has a heart palpitation. There's a old folks facility down the street from me, and so several times a day you see a rescue truck either chasing a fire truck or being chased by a fire truck to that. Each case where they've come to my house, it's been the fire truck and the rescue truck. There are alternatives. Chief Paul DeYoung in the city of Hialeah was able to stop this practice, increase the number of people on the rescue truck by one, still maintain their rating of 1A, which is important for your insurance rates, and decrease the amount of time, the response time, and decrease the cost of the fire rescue mission. There are ambulance cycles in Israel that have a response time of 45 seconds. They respond to bombings and heart palpitations in 45 seconds using emergency motorcycles that get through quickly, and if reinforcements are required, then they've got the radio where they can call and ask for reinforcements. We too could do that by simply adding one more person to the existing emergency vehicle. You could maintain your rating, and you could add more emergency vehicles and not waste the mileage on your fire trucks and the additional fuel, and most of all the personnel that are showing up for routine emergencies. Yeah, if you've got a big fire, okay, that's what the radio's for. So please be our representatives, and this is a process management issue and something that we should be looking at as managers of this critical facility for Brevard County. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That is the end of the speaker cards. Commissioners, comments? Mr. Nardi.
I'll just say, I appreciate the discussion regarding the tiered, but, just looking at these numbers, there's about, if we go off Ms. Conklin's numbers, there's about 8,300 houses that are between 2,600 and 3,000 square feet, and another 8,900 that are above that. So given that there are over 107,000 people paying, this is already a tiered system, unless you're telling me by charging 6 times the amount that we're going to send 6 times the force, trucks, and resources out there. I don't know how that's justifiable. Because as it's existing now, it's about double for about the difference between, I had it written down here, it was like a 1,200 square foot versus a 2,000 square foot home. The fee was about double. And I know we're not sending out double resources. So I know that this is the best way we can calculate it. I don't think by punishing people who have a little bit bigger home justifies the 6 timing their fee just because they happen to be successful or they happen to have a larger home. Not unless, we're sending out 72, personnel and, about 10 trucks to one house, which I know we're not.
Quite that many.
Correct. So. Thank you, ma'am. I don't have a card on you, ma'am. What's your name? Maria. Do you want to come up and then go fill a card out right after? I don't have a card on you. You're going to have to fill out a card, but if you'd like to, I'm sorry, but if you'd like to come up and speak and then go to the back and fill the card out immediately after. Are you Silveria? You filled out one for evacuation of unit. Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Maria Elisa Silveira. Okay, I bought my unit on August 2017. In November, Brevard can't evacuate us. So we live outside right now, paying almost $3,000 in rent. And I'm trying to figure out, I have been dealing with the appraisal's office as far as my tax reduction. Me and the other 24 units down there. I am located at 3035 Highway A1A. My unit is 3B. So the question is, how have almost over $2,000 a month in expense between rent and everything else. Why I have to pay $235 when I do not live in the place? We don't know when we're going to solve the problem. The attorneys are handling the whole story. And the appraisal office said that this tax for the fire, they cannot do anything. So, can give to them the letter that I sent to the appraisal office, and they have to consider our case. We are 24 units. We don't live in the place. I was renovating the place when I was evacuated. So how? This is impossible. You understand my story. So I appreciate very much all your time, and I'm give to them the letter that I sent to the appraisal office, and I appreciate if they consider our case, you know what I mean, at least for this year, and then next year, do whatever you decide in doing the job. Okay?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Okay, Commissioner Isnardi, that's an old light. Yeah. Okay, oh, go ahead, ma'am.
I found it. You know, the difference between a 1,000 square foot home to a 2,000 square foot home is $105.59 or $329.95. So considering that we are not sending out that many resources, double, triple, or otherwise, I don't see how that's justifiable to punish, in essence, the gentleman or the family that has a 2,000 square foot home as opposed to a 1,000 square foot home. They are already paying more. Another one is, well, I think I've made my point, but again, I think they're already paying more. You know, if the commission wants to look at, you know, something over 3,000 as a whole, I still don't think that they should pay 6 times the amount. I don't think that's fair and equitable because we're not expending 6 times the resources. So.
Thank you, ma'am. If we would have done like a $20 per family, I probably wouldn't agree to that either. But 6%, if someone's paying $1 right now, they're going to pay 6 cents more. If they're paying $100, they're going to pay $6 more. So there is a percentage that is being prorated this way, and the larger houses are going to be paying more. So I think it's kind of built in with the lower base that it was started in a few years ago. So I'm probably good with this at this point too. And again, after a year, I would like for us to take a look at it as we're moving forward and see how we're panning out with the 6% that we're agreeing to. Mr. Abate.
And just for the board's information, I believe if you were to change the proportion of the dollars based on the square footage, that would require a new study and new assessment. So we'd have to bring on a consultant again to do that for us. To do that, I don't have the exact cost, but we believe it's somewhere in the area of $60,000. It very well may take 2 or 3 months to do. And then it would have to come back, that assessment would have to come back, be considered by the board, and we would have to go through the public notice again, that process, which we'd have to, because we're required statutorily to send out that notification similar to the one I previously sent out, that we sent out to 107,000 households by mail, first-class mail, and we would then need to have 2 public hearings with 20 days after the notice is given. That's all statutory requirements. The other consideration is if we don't pass it, if the board chooses not to do that at this time, we need to go through that process, and we are starting, we are going through the budget process right now as we speak to set up the budget that will be submitted for the board's consideration. The initial one, a tentative budget in July. We're meeting with the departments during the month of June. So I just wanted to just clarify for the board, make sure you were aware of what the costs would be, the additional costs of proceeding if you chose to want to relook at the way the assessments are handled in terms of square footage and changing the numbers from what's proposed now.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Barfield.
Yes, there was a lot of confusion on what rates were, and I know the letter went out and it wasn't that clear, but also one of our commissioners sent a letter out or an email out, which even clouded the issue either. And I'm going to call one of my commissioners out now, Commissioner Tobias, and I'm going to read the email that he sent out, because we had a tremendous amount of complaints. It said, "Dear neighbor, you may have recently received one of 104,000 disturbing notices from the county informing you of an increase in the fire service's special assessment included on your tax bill. I'm sorry to say that this letter, which costs $47,000 to send to residents, is legitimate, and you should take it seriously. 3 county commissioners, Kurt Smith, Rita Pritchett, and Jim Barfield, voted to raise this line of your tax bill by 15% over the next few years. I voted against this tax increase. I apologize that I had such small text, which this does, and may have been difficult to read. But those commissioners that voted for it would, I'm sure, prefer it that way. After all, they voted against putting their name on the letter. Nobody should be surprised. Just a few months ago, this same group of politicians callously voted to raise fees on the sick and injured who need an ambulance by more than 30%. I dissented. Before that, the board thoughtlessly voted to raise your property taxes. You may have seen a notice of tax increase in Florida Today that late last year. Again, I voted no. And this is John Tobias. I have no doubt that the politicians who voted for this 15% increase will be quick to claim that this is not a tax increase because it is a, quote, below the line. I believe that if your tax bill goes up, it is a tax increase. In the end, however, the slimy semantics make it no difference. I'm disgusted that the board continues its habit of out-of-control spending on the backs of our hardworking, tax-paying citizens. There's still time to convince commissioners, and it goes on and tells about when the meeting is. Here's my problem. Once again, politics threatens the future of our county. Commissioner Tobias is a professional career politician and government worker. He published a letter filled with these half-truths and self-righteousness to follow through on his promise to get Kurt Smith and myself out of office. Mr. Tobias, with 2 degrees in political science and employed by the state as professor of political science, is well versed in what it is to be a politician. It's get elected and reelected. This latest fiction concerns a proposed increase in the fire service special assessment fee for unincorporated Brevard County and 4 cities. No change has been made in fees in 10 years. No inflation adjustments. Yet deceptively states that this will raise the line of your tax bill by 15% over the next few years. Well, the truth is the increase will be for 6% increases and will be based on inflation adjustments after that. If you took the numbers from right now back to 2009 to here, it would be over 15% if you built in the inflation factor. But here's what bothers me the most about this email or this letter. Nowhere did he explain why or what for these changes were, or what they were going to be used for. It leads you to believe that we just like to raise taxes, fees and taxes, which is pretty much ridiculous because we hate paying taxes too. One reason is that firefighters gave up all their raises during the recession because of budget constraints. The turnover in firefighters is alarming. As one gentleman spoke, we have turnover and they go to other counties. Well, they get their training with Brevard County and then they'll go to higher pay in Orange County or other municipalities. What you'll hear is Commissioner Tobias' position on firefighters in an October 31st, 2016 campaign forum, where he states, quote, "We need to shut these folks down," unquote. Folks, these are highly trained first responders who save lives. I've been in bed one time and had to wake up and call 911 all by myself, and they were there. Fortunately, I'm alive now. So I have the utmost respect for our firefighters. Another item that wasn't mentioned. Over 2/3 of our frontline engine fleet and all reserves are manufactured by American LaFrance, which went out of business in 2014 after 145 years in business. With the exception of motors and transmissions, all parts are proprietary and cannot be found for purchase. So we have to cannibalize on the reserve units and everything else we can. Well, you can only cannibalize so much. Inevitably, new equipment will need to be purchased. The price of equipment has escalated tremendously. But nobody should be surprised with all this political antics that are going on. You can look at the votes, how politics works. Mr. Tobias, he voted all for spending tourist development dollars for the lagoon. And then he votes against the moratorium for septic tanks. But I think the one that sticks out the most to me right now, which was an embarrassment to our county, was bringing before this board a resolution for Puerto Rico not to be a state. I'm sorry, but we don't have that power to do things like that. So I understand when they say no. It's okay to say no, but this commission has to take politics aside and look at what we have to do for the future of this county. In the past, we've had commissioners and commissions which have only done certain things. They've only done to the short term. And that's what gets us in the situation we are right now. So I just want you to know that, people can always blame politics and politicians, and I only have 181 days left. And then I go back to the real world and make money and be a businessman. But you know what? I've enjoyed every bit of this. But the thing is this, we have to stop the gamemanship. We have got to do what's best for this county. And let's protect the public safety. And with that, I make a motion that we go ahead and approve this assessment.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 3-2 with Commissioners Isnardi and Tobias an objection. And one comment that I wanted to make is I don't mind people having different opinions up here. I think that's what brings out the best of taxation with representation, that we're all able to speak and try to come to the best decisions we're making for our county. I think a couple things got probably, I'm going to, for trying to use a softer term, disingenuous of the heart of what was going on up here. And as far as the letter going out, there's some things that are fine and some things I thought got a little bit too political myself. But, on that note, my constituents are getting a little used to it. We're getting less responses than we were at first when they went out. And it actually opens up dialogue for me with them, and I'm able to explain then what's going on and what these items mean. And by the time it's done, that I have a pretty comfortable District 1 as we're working through this. So in that, it kind of helps me out. It's brought me closer to my community, so that's all right too. But one thing I did want to mention in that, it said we voted for tax increase. We had to send out the letters because voter voted for higher parks and ills, and that's what we did. Everything else was a tax decrease last year. So I know I've said this 4 or 5 times, so I thought I'd say it one more time. If you check your tax bill, you paid less in taxes next year, and hopefully it'll be the same thing this year as we're moving forward. And on that, we are going to move to item C, septic tank moratorium. Thank you.
Morning. This is the second reading of an ordinance establishing a 150-day limited moratorium on new conventional septic systems or any system which does not provide a minimum of 65% total nitrogen reduction on the barrier islands, including Merritt Island, and within 50 meters of the Indian River Lagoon system and connected waterways countywide. I'll give a shorter introduction than 2 weeks ago and explain proposed changes that have occurred since the first hearing. Nitrogen is contributing to pollution, algal blooms, and fish kills in the Indian River Lagoon. Nitrogen loading from septic drain fields is a recognized source of pollution in the lagoon through groundwater pollution migration.
For the lagoon waters in Brevard County, it's been determined that septic drain fields contribute approximately 1/3 of all new nitrogen pollution. A properly functioning conventional septic system is designed to treat human pathogens, but only reduces nitrogen pollution by an average of 30 to 40%. Requiring higher performing septic systems where it's not feasible to connect to sewer could provide immediate additional protections to the Indian River Lagoon. The local planning agency and the Building Contractors Advisory Committee both heard this item. There was no public comment at those meetings, but considerable discussion by each board. Members were concerned about the definition of shoreline and how people, the septic industry, and home builders will be affected by the timing of the moratorium. These concerns were addressed with 2 proposed changes shown in track changes in your agenda packet, adding top of bank to the shoreline definition, and adding an exemption for people who have already contracted with a home builder for their new home. Additionally, representatives from the septic industry met with Commissioner Barfield on Friday afternoon. Commissioner Barfield had staff in the county attorney's office work on clarifying language the board may wish to add. That was emailed to you late yesterday. If you don't have it, okay. So that clarifying language does not change what was in your agenda packet. It just adds examples of what systems would be allowed to provide clarity for the general reader. The moratorium is temporary, up to 150 days. Its purpose is to provide time to develop a more informed ordinance to address the impact of septic systems on the lagoon and Brevard. Ordinance preparation will consider the appropriateness of the 65% TN reduction standard, refine the overlay area, looking at risk factors, including proximity to a surface water connected to the lagoon, depth to groundwater, density of development, age of the septic system, as well as numerous soil characteristics. Staff will also evaluate the feasibility of expanding sewer service to areas of high risk for septic pollution, consider how to address hardship cases, as well as identify potential funding sources to prevent social justice implications.
Any comments right now? I'm going to go ahead and call for public comment. Okay. Janice Gregory, you'll be first. Sarah Ann Conklin, you'll be next. If you would please move to the front and be ready, and then Philip Stasek, you'll be next.
I get to be first again.
Ms. Gregory,
sensing
you
a trend
do.
Here. My name is Janice Gregory, and I live in Cocoa, and I'm going to be really short and sweet. I would like to take this opportunity to express my support for the septic moratorium and to thank you for your forethought and care for our Indian River Lagoon. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Conklin?
I'll make this even shorter. Ditto.
Cute.
Fastest comment.
Mr. Stasek, and then Darlene Hillers.
Thank you again, Madam Chair, and the rest of the board. You know our position, and we know your position. That is to defend the Indian River Lagoon. The Indian River Lagoon, as we all know, is in serious trouble. In fact, it's dying. I have done, over the years, dozens and dozens and dozens of cleanup dives on the bottom of this lagoon, and I've seen it personally. I've been in that muck. I've been in the water. I got the staph infection from it. I really understand the threat to our ecosystem, to every resident of this county, and to all of our visitors. I'm so glad, in fact, I'm really excited that you're taking this step. This is a very, very important but small step, and we expect you to continue stepping in this direction. We truly support you in making this step, and we encourage you to continue, again, not only reducing the number of septic systems, but improving the sewer service in our county. We must upgrade our sewers. We must put the money behind modernized sewer systems. By the way, for what it's worth, and I think you appreciate her value, but most citizens in this county don't know about Virginia Barker. I think we all benefit greatly from her service and her team. The truth is that what they are doing benefits all of us. So I think she deserves kudos. I hope that you all can support her in her efforts and her continuing efforts. This is not something that's a 6-month project. or even a 6-year project. This is a long-term, ongoing project that's so important for all of us. So once again, to close, we really, really do support this small step in the right direction. We strongly encourage you to proceed with a further septic moratorium, improving our sewer systems, reducing the nitrogen load, bringing our beautiful lagoon back to health. Thank you so much. Do you have any questions?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Darlene Hillers, Gil Meredith, you'll be next if you come forward, please.
Hi, I'm Darlene Hillers from North Merritt Island, and as you well know, the goal of the Save Our Indian River Lagoon project plan is to improve the health, productivity, aesthetic appeal, and economic value of the lagoon. The Save Our Indian River Lagoon referendum, which we the citizens of Brevard County passed, was to provide a funding mechanism for the projects listed in this plan. Almost all of these projects are contingent upon additional fundraising, such as match funding from the state and federal grant programs. In other words, we need more money than will be generated by the half-cent tax. I believe by passing the temporary 5-month moratorium on the permitting and installation of conventional septic systems will be one more step in helping to achieve that goal. We need to find ways to reduce the amount of harmful nutrients from entering the lagoon and other waterways. The moratorium will only affect beachside areas of Brevard County and on Merritt Island, as well as mainland areas within 164 feet of the Indian River Lagoon system and its tributaries. Developers, builders, and homeowners would still be able to install the more effective septic systems. In my opinion, this would be the responsible thing to do. I agree with Commissioner Isnardi that we also need to focus on ways to extend sewer system service to areas that don't have it. And the Indian Harbor Beach area may need a new wastewater treatment plant, but these issues should be addressed separately. The utility companies need to come up with a plan on how to implement these needs. The county and city governments need to plan on how to generate the revenue needed. Nobody wants to see their utility bill increase, but community growth that seems to be desired by our government leaders may merit an increase. With growth comes the responsibility of how to plan for the needed infrastructure. As to the concern that there is no science to support the moratorium, I would recommend you read the 2018 updated Save Our Indian River Lagoon project plan. It clearly states that nitrogen loading from septic drain fields is a recognized source of pollution in the Indian River Lagoon through groundwater pollution migration, as Virginia stated. Because of the greater than projected revenue collected so far by the half-cent tax, the Indian River Lagoon project will be able to add new projects such as identifying leaking or broken sewer lines and assisting property owners with the cost to repair leaky sewer connections to help with the healing of the lagoon. Another suggestion you might want to consider would be to put some additional funds into a reserve account to cover inevitable cost increases of future projects. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and together I believe we can save our lagoon.
Thank you, ma'am. Gail Meredith and Danny White, if you'll come up front, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Gail Meredith from Satellite Beach. I'm also on the Brevard Indian River Lagoon Coalition, and I wanted to support the septic moratorium and especially to recognize Commissioner Kurt Smith, Jim Barfield, and Rita Pritchett for their leadership in this issue. We are so glad that we are finally looking carefully at the septic issues, and we're willing to begin regulating. A few months ago, when you decided to give additional septic permits in wetlands areas, we were extremely concerned about the lagoon, and things have gotten a lot worse since then. And we're glad to see that the Commission is beginning to do the regulation that's necessary, that's going to be necessary in this long future that we're looking at of the many years it's going to take to bring this lagoon back to where it should be. Thank you so much for taking this step.
Thank you, ma'am. Danny White, Karen Moser, you'll be next.
Good morning. My name is Danny White. I'm from Malabar. My wife and I moved here a couple of years ago. We were surprised, coming from Texas, that aerobic treatment systems weren't used more widely here. In the Lake Conroe area that we come from, it's required. And we could eat the fish we caught out of Lake Conroe. So I'm all for this moratorium. I would like to see, when we talk about all the waterways that feed the Indian River Lagoon, naturally anybody that lives along the Indian River Lagoon, that's high cost property and they could afford these types of systems. Maybe inland in the waterways, it might require some type of subsidy to offset the cost for people of lower income. But we definitely need to take a look at this. I support it fully. I hope y'all do too. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, sir. Karen Moser, George Rosenfield, you'll be next if you'll come forward, please, sir.
Hi, Karen Moser from Malabar. I just wanted to also thank those of you who are supporting this moratorium. I do very much support this. I've always heard that when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging, and that's kind of what you're doing here while you figure out the way forward. It was no surprise to those of us who were following the discussion during the campaign for the half-cent sales tax that septic tanks are a problem. This was very clearly stated by everyone. It was thoroughly discussed, and it was our understanding that part of that money was going to go to help people upgrade the septic systems, and the tying in with city water and sewer was also necessary. You're absolutely right about that, Commissioner Znardi. This is a very similar issue to what we saw when I lived up in Maryland, which was then the Chesapeake Bay, had the same issues as the Indian River Lagoon. We passed a tax on our water and sewer bills. I think it was only about $5 a bill or something like that, to upgrade our sewage treatment plants. And that ran into some opposition. They said, oh, it's a flush tax. We said, fine, it's a flush tax. We passed it. And that and a lot of other initiatives has helped to turn the problem on the Chesapeake Bay. And I think we can do the same thing here with the Indian River Lagoon if we continue to work in the way you're going. So thank you very much. And please continue with your level of leadership you're showing on this.
Thank you, ma'am. George Rosenfeld, Ron Davenport, if you'd come forward next, sir.
My name is George Rosenfield. I live in the Sun Tree. I am an environmental scientist, retired. Thank you in advance for passing the 5-month septic tank moratorium. I hope my previous presentations to the Citizens Oversight Committee, Transportation Planning Office, and this commission had some influence on your decision. This will give some breathing space for considering the sewage infrastructure problem and also the connection, improvement, and building of sewer treatment plants. The 5-row house home that I was raised in was more than 120 years old when my mother sold it, never had a sewage problem. I don't know where the pipes led to, but they had never needed repair or replacement during all those years. Maybe if the job had been done right here in Florida, we wouldn't have these problems now. Also, maybe the $10 million in excess tax money collected could be allocated towards fixing the present sewer infrastructure problem. Improving and building sewer treatment plants should be at the expense of developers building homes for the expanding populations. Have we ever replaced the stalled impact fees? Maybe they should be increased. The writer in Thursday's paper is about the science of it. The Citizens Oversight Committee is wrong. The persons in the Citizens Oversight Committee represent the people of the county, not scientists. The science is very well provided by Virginia Barker and a well-qualified staff. I have spoken to some of them. She is well-founded in environmental science with her MS degree from Duke. That is where I was supposed to go. My college had an agreement with Duke. If they sent you, Duke accepted you. I had personal reasons for not going there. Friday's paper was had a well-represented letter from Leslie Malone, member of the Indian River Lagoon Coalition that I also follow. She is also leader of the local Sierra Club. Today's paper, M.J. Waters of the Indian River Lagoon Coalition had an editorial that was very well presented. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ron Davenport and David Lentz, if you'd come forward, please.
My name is Ron Davenport. I first want to thank the commissioners for all your hard work, what you do. You take some shots, but I appreciate all you do. And most of all, thanks for letting me speak. I live in Melbourne, Windover Farms, since 2006. We have a septic system there. But more importantly, I'm not your regular homeowner. I've worked for on-site company for 15 years now. I've served on the government trap committee. I've past president of FAUA. Kind of know a little too much, or enough to get me in trouble. I want to applaud you guys for this ordinance. This is good. This is a great, brave first step. I want to encourage you to keep it at NSF 245. NSF 245 is a standard for the industry. Everybody knows it. It treats nitrogen. There's others out there that don't treat nitrogen. We can't let them in. We have a nitrogen issue in the lagoon. We've got to treat nitrogen. So I encourage you to keep the standard high. There's other places that are doing this. The lady before talked about Chesapeake Bay, Suffolk County, and the Hamptons. They're going through the same thing. You can lead the way. So I encourage you to make the standard high. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. David Lentz, then Stephen Chalmers. If you'd come forward, please.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is David Lentz. I'm a licensed professional engineer with Infiltrator Water Technologies and also the company's government affairs director. Infiltrator is a manufacturer of on-site treatment and dispersal products, including nitrogen treatment systems. We made a proposal to Commissioner Barfield as part of the public comment process last week to expand the allowable systems from performance-based treatment systems, which were in the original proposal on May 8th, to include NSF 245 certified systems, which treat nitrogen. So just a little bit of background. This is the standard. It's an industry standard. Ron Davenport just talked about it. It's published by NSF International. And in that standard, a system that's certified to it must treat to at least 50% nitrogen. So whatever is incoming on the tail end of the system after treatment, the concentration would be reduced by 50%. So our proposal was to combine an NSF 245 certified system with a properly constructed and maintained drain field. The drain field will contribute another 20 to 30% reduction in nitrogen reduction. So what this does is expand the number of manufacturers of these types of systems from 8, which is on the Florida Department of Health's list of performance-based treatment systems, to about 21. I was just doing internet research from NSF International and Gulf Coast Testing, which are two organizations that are accredited by the American National Standards Institute to certify to NSF 245. So with that expansion, you get more competition in the marketplace. That's better for Brevard County residents because pricing, of course, is more favorable when there's competition. My recommendation on how the ordinance is written is is to provide a prescriptive list of options that are available to a designer of these types of systems, rather than leave it open-ended and let professional engineers pick any type of system that they like. If you give them a list that is based on either the Florida DOH approved systems, the Florida DEP's work with the Basin Management Action Plans, those types of technologies, or what I've just discussed today, they'll have plenty of options available for designing septic systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stephen Chalmers, Catherine Ely, if you'd come forward, please, and be ready.
Commissioners, my name is Stephen Chalmers, Bayside Lakes, 37 years. And I just want to say, someone said everyone should run for public office at least once in their lives, whether it's dog catcher or president. I'm absolutely amazed at what people put up with and do in service to us, and I appreciate every one of you being here, whether you agree with what I want you to do or not. And that being said, and to the issue of the day and the moment, I love the expression ready, fire, aim. I think taking a moment to pause, as Jim suggested when he brought this up, is a good idea at this point. We have a lot of people now to contribute to a discussion and to consider the different choices that we have and the different sources and resources that we have to do what we want to do. And so I applaud all of us together, whatever sides of this issue that we're on, in the spirit of arriving at something that we can all live with and in fact enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Ely, Dr. John Windsor, if you'd come forward, please.
Hello, my name is Catherine Ely. I live in the Diana Shores part of Merritt Island, and I support passing this temporary moratorium and on permitting an installation of conventional septic systems, which will be helpful to reach the goal of saving our lagoon. I'm sure you know the fishing. My husband and I love to fish. We live on the water. We cannot and won't be fishing anytime soon. When you see dead fish along the water, it's not appealing to go fishing. And of course, it impacts our tourism money too, with boat captains and so on that provide tourists with that nice thing to do. So I completely support this. I thank you all very much for hearing. The water is absolutely disgusting right now. It's dark brown. Just barely 8 years we've lived here, this is our second fish kill that we've seen. We moved here because it is beautiful, and we had clean water when we first came here, and now we've had 2 fish kills in just a few years ago, and here we go again. So please consider this, and thank you for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. John Windsor, Vince Lamb, if you'd come forward, sir, and be ready.
Hi, John Windsor, Melbourne, Florida. I've been working on Indian River Lagoon restoration and preservation for 36 years now. I serve on the Citizens Oversight Committee for the Save Our Indian River Lagoon Plan, but I'm not speaking for them today. I'm speaking for myself. That organization recommended to this board more than $22 million in septic system upgrades, and you guys approved it, and that money's going out now to do those upgrades. It seems illogical to me to be adding new septic systems when we're paying to have other septic systems taken out. So there's another $50 million in septic upgrades coming in future years in the plan, and I recommend very strongly that you consider this moratorium and then come back later with some good ideas from natural resources and from the citizens in the community for dealing with the septic system issue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lamb, Roxanne Grover, if you'd come forward, please, to the front.
Good morning. I'm Vince Lamb of South Merritt Island. I served as the chairman of the Save Our Indian River Lagoon Political Action Committee that helped pass the referendum. And of course, I've got quite a vested interest in the lagoon. I also am a member of the steering committee of the coalition, although I'm speaking strictly on my own behalf right now. I strongly support the moratorium and the concept of requiring advanced septic systems within 50 meters of the lagoon and waters that lead to the lagoon. I think the details of the ordinance will be very important. I'm glad we have 5 months to, as much as 5 months, to make sure that we get the details right, because I've looked at this advanced septic tank industry, and it's an emerging industry. It kind of reminds me of the automobile industry in the early 1900s in terms of small manufacturers and changing technology and lots of different approaches. I think this is good, but I think we better find our way to a truly effective ordinance here. With the coalition, we've been working to bring representatives of other water bodies to Brevard County to share information on what's been successful. And we've had representatives of the Chesapeake Bay and Tampa Bay recently. A common element of these success stories are elected officials who have made difficult decisions to stand up and protect their water bodies. Perhaps this is a difficult decision for some of you. It's an opportunity to stand up and protect our lagoon. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Roxanne Grover, Helen Volz, if you'd come forward, please.
Good afternoon, Roxanne Groover, Executive Director for the Florida On-Site Wastewater Association. Thank you for allowing me to speak a second time. I agree with a lot of your speakers here. We as an industry support moving forward and understanding that conventional septic systems are not taking care of Florida's waters as it relates to nitrogen reduction. I also applaud this board and Virginia and her staff for working so diligently to make sure that we have available options in the on-site industry, and we're working towards a marriage, for lack of a better term, of all kinds of on-site wastewater treatment and wastewater treatment in the state of Florida. To make this a little easier, I know we've talked a lot about the different types of systems. I agree with Dave Lentz from Infiltrator. 245 is a standard that needs to be adopted in the state. It certainly is an indicator of a strong wastewater treatment system that's passed rigid third-party testing. And currently, right now, it is not written into the code. So for you to be able to make sure that you adopt it so that those systems, those 245 systems, would be able to be used because it's a specific protocol written for nitrogen reduction systems. I would also encourage other systems with the additional use of low-pressure dosing in a shallow trench or drip irrigation. But as I said, to make it a little easier, I've actually made a handout here with QR codes. So if anybody wants to go to any of those different technologies that are standard through NSF 40 or 245, it will take you directly to their link. You can get some information. I think as communities such as yourself and states such as Florida keep moving towards looking at nitrogen and understanding that we as OSTDS can be part of that wastewater challenge that's out there, I think we'll see more of these standard 40 systems go over and test to NSF 245. I sat on the joint committee, and I think one of the challenges we've had is that manufacturers did not see a need to test to nitrogen. And I think communities such as yourself are saying we are concerned about our waters. We know that OSTDS can be part of the solution, but you need to prove to us that you can treat nitrogen, and that test is very, very helpful in that determination. So with your permission, I'll hand these to this group over here or yourselves.
Go ahead.
And I'll leave that information with you.
Thank you. Ms. Volz, MJ Waters, if you come forward and be ready, ma'am.
Hi, Helen Volz from the great city of West Melbourne. I'm probably going to be one of those that is not in support of this ordinance. 150 days to do what? I'm not sure exactly what you're going to be doing in 150 days. New septic tanks are not going to be put in. New sewer systems are not going to be put in. It's going to be another study to do something else down the road. Something should have been done before now. We've had years and years and years to determine that there's something wrong with the Indian River Lagoon. and nothing has been done. Why not? And why now? All of a sudden, this has to come up. And yeah, the new septic tanks will help. You're not going to get any new septic tanks after 150 days. And then what do? Extend the moratorium another 150 days until everybody has their ducks in a row to be able to put in new septic tanks. I'm not sure that that's going to get done. I know how government works and how slow it is. So I would just speak against this ordinance only because, and it's not because something doesn't need to be done, but it's the fact that something should have been done a long time ago, and it hasn't been. My son is a boater, and he goes out in the ocean to fish because he doesn't fish in the Indian River Lagoon because he can't eat it. So he takes his boat up and down the Indian River Lagoon just to go boating, and that's it. So he would love to see the Indian River Lagoon cleaned up, as would I. But I think maybe there's a better way to do that and increase the sewer system has got to be number one, which you're going to need money for, and then you're going to need people to be able to hook up to it, which not everybody wants to spend the money to hook up to it. So that's another issue. But the increased septic tanks will probably help. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Waters, I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this for the fishers in District 1, but they're catching some really good fish right now at Mosquito Lagoon in District 1 if y'all want to come out and do some fishing. And bring back some big reds and everything. Yes, ma'am.
I'm MJ Waters. I am the president of the board of the Indian River Lagoon Coalition. Thank you for seriously considering this, and I have to say, never in a million years did I think I would be standing in front of a government body talking about septic tanks. We as a board wholeheartedly endorse the passage of this as the first step in taking a look at what we can do to reduce nitrogen in our lagoon, because we know that that's the big problem. But one of the things we have to remember is it's not just leaky septic tanks. It's sewage systems that need repair. It's residential fertilizer. It's stormwater runoff. It's muck that regularly re-releases the nitrogen. And this is not an either-or proposition. We have to address every single one of these things concurrently as much as we can. And this is a great way to start to address, further address the sewage problem. Even a properly functioning conventional septic system reduces nitrogen pollution by only 30 to 40%. Whereas with some of these more advanced systems, you can get closer to 70, even 80%. And one of the things I was shocked to learn is that while all of this is going on, where we're looking at sewage and septic tanks, the Florida Department of Health is approving Brevard new septic permits at double the rate of the removals and upgrades that are in our 10-year plan. And that's a Florida law, and Brevard doesn't have any say in that. So I would suggest, as you consider this going forward, that you take a look at some of our state representatives and say, hey guys, how can you help us with this at the state level? If they're still approving conventional systems at the same time that we're taking them out of places like Breeze Swept and Rockledge, then the right hand doesn't know what the left is doing. So I think that's really important. And while you've got this 5 months to study this, that's a great time to figure out what the appropriate steps are to mitigate the problems and also take a look at the impact on the homeowners, which I know you'll take a look at, and how can we make this palatable to people. And when you're building a new home, it's just as easy to put in an advanced system as to put in a conventional one, so that can spread the cost over many years. So we applaud your consideration of this. As you know, this community is very passionate about the restoration of the lagoon. I'm a volunteer at the Brevard Zoo, where I just chat with families and visitors, and not a day goes by that I'm not asked what's happening with the Indian River Lagoon. We are worried about it. So thank you particularly, Commissioner Pridgett, Smith, and Barfield, for your support for this.
Thank you, ma'am. Anthony Dutton and Linda Brevard, if you'd come down also, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Anthony Dutton, and I live in Suntree. I'm here this morning to urge you, the County Commissioners, to vote to adopt the proposed ordinance known as the 5-month moratorium to some of us. We all agree, I believe, that actions must be taken soon to restore the lagoon's water quality and to secure the $2 billion in benefits that such restoration will provide, and to avoid the $4 billion in damages that will result if the lagoon is not brought back to health during the next decade. Yes, we must focus on ways to extend and pay for sewer service to those developed areas of the county that don't have it, especially those located beachside. But little will be lost by avoiding for 5 months the installation or renovation of conventional septic systems while we decide on the best ways to proceed. Please vote yes on the moratorium, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Linda Bayret, Dan Peterson, if you'd come forward, please, to the front.
Hi. Oops, a little closer. Hi, I'm Linda Barrett from Vieira, and I am here speaking for both myself and our local Sierra Club group, the Turtle Coast Sierra Club, and we're all in favor of passing the temporary septic moratorium. I can speak for myself. 15 years ago, when my husband and I were looking for a house here in Brevard, we came down to a choice of 2 houses. One was on Merritt Island and had a septic system. The other was in Vieira and was on sewer. We chose the house in Vieira, and we've been very happy there. And part of the consideration was definitely that we did not want a house on a septic tank. So I would, and of course, that was even before I knew as much as I do now about what septic systems can do to the lagoon. It may not be the only cause of pollution in the lagoon, but it is one of the biggest sources of pollution for our lagoon. And so anything that can be done to remove that pollution has to be a good thing for the lagoon and tourism and the real estate industry, people coming down, moving down here. So for all those reasons, I would like to urge you to pass this moratorium and to thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Dan Peterson, Roland Van Ardell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, Commissioner, and Commissioners. Thank you for being an opportunity to be here. I'm Dan Peterson. I'm actually a resident of the metropolis of Mineola, Florida. But I work with the James Madison Institute, and this is an area that I've followed for some time. And as I was reading in the newspaper recently about this particular vote that was coming up and reading, I had been in touch with Commissioner Snarty, who suggested I maybe come over here and share something that's going on in Central Florida regarding the BMAP system. I'll assume you all understand what the BMAPs are, the Basin Management Action Plans that are designed to protect Florida's aquifer and springs. And tomorrow there's going to be a meeting that Department of Environmental Protection will be holding in Orlando, and they will be kind of presenting the results of their plan for the Wekiva Springs Basin area. And Wekiva Springs Basin area is a spring, has about 55,000 homes with septic systems in it. They have narrowed that down to 25,000 homes in what they call the primary focus area. And these are the things that they are going to be presenting tomorrow. I got this actually from a friend of mine, Drew Bartlett, who happens to be the Deputy Director of DEP and in charge of all restoration projects in Florida. So this is perhaps more information regarding future, but it's interesting to see the approach that they are beginning to take here. And this is obviously going to be subject to change, but these are some of the things that are going to be. There are 4 big moving parts to the plan. The first one, and this is only for the primary focus area in the Wekiva Springs area. The first thing that they're going to do is new construction on lots that are less than 1 acre. They will be required to either connect to a sewer or they will be required to use a nitrogen-reducing septic system. Okay, so that's one. Second thing is, beginning on July 1, Orange County, any county involved in this area is going to do an assessment. And what they will do is they will assess the homes in the primary focus area, and they will decide whether they are appropriate for sewering or whether they will need to use some sort of a nitrogen-reducing system. And then they will move forward from then. While that is, and they will have 5 years to do that, by the way. And that will be a much bigger project in Orange County than, say, Lake County, where I live. But they'll do that assessment, that feasibility study. As that goes on, Department of Health is going to need to come up with a set of rules that they will need to do and the approvals of the kind of systems that can be used in that area. And this may be a template for all over Florida, in fact. So they will do that. Now, there's not a lot of detail with that, but that will be coming. And then Department of Environmental Protection is really in charge of putting together the funds. And kind of the reasoning is, if this is going to be a public benefit, then the public should be paying for it. The Department of Health and DEP have 3 ways in which those who are required to use nitrogen-reducing systems, they have 3 general categories. They have just approved, evidently, a completely passive, non-electric septic system. It operates like a conventional system, but it is underlined with wood chips. And these wood chips will reduce well over 65 to 70% of the nitrogen that comes from those septic systems. So that's a big change, and that should be good news for homeowners because, the other systems are all electricity driven, which is a dangerous thing in Florida with the number of times our power goes out. And some of the systems have yet to be really field tested that they're offering. So there's a lot happening there. So the new construction mandates, all the homeowners will be able to choose this passive system that uses the wood chips or the aerobic systems or the advanced systems. They will, for the existing septic systems that are there, when those systems fail, that is when they will be required to use a nitrogen-producing system. So a lot of homeowners in that area won't have to do anything for a number of years. But upon failure, that is when they'll need to replace their system. And then, of course, there's the existing systems which are nearby enough to connect to sewer systems. And the public money, taxpayer money, will fund the extension of sewer systems. And then the homeowners will be required to actually probably pay the cost to connect to those systems. So
thank you, sir.
That's a thumbnail of what's going on over there, and I hope that helps in your future planning. I have a copy of this, if that would be helpful.
You can,
Okay.
if you'd like to hand it out, you can pass it down there. Mr. Van Ardell, Lou Kotnick, if you'd come forward, please.
Roland Van Arsdale from Melbourne. I apologize for my handwriting.
It's not too bad. I apologize for my pronunciation. So.
No problem. Anyway, I'm here mainly to applaud you guys for finally moving forward on doing something to get the lagoon back to where it used to be. I applaud the moratorium, but I would hope it does not get in the way of doing additional work with the expansion of the sewers, because I think it's got to be more than a single solution. And the professionals have gone into that far more than I can. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kotnick, Carol Hamilton, if you'd move forward to the front, please.
Great. Thank you all so much. And I want to thank the commissioners that have brought this moratorium forward, Virginia Barker and her staff, for the work that you've done. I really want to focus on the issue of leadership and of the signal that you're sending or you're not sending. We know the facts. 82,000 septic systems here in Brevard, 60,000 contributing nutrients to the lagoon. Septic systems accounting for something like 30% of the new pollution into the lagoon each year, and hundreds of new septic systems being permitted each year. And also that the community voted 62% and is stacked here saying, please help us fix our system. And so I see it really incumbent on you and on you to exercise your leadership to adopt this important moratorium, the 5 months where we can do the evaluation, rather than taking a position that communicates a weakness, gee, we're powerless here kind of attitude. Tampa Bay, Chesapeake, and other estuaries have demonstrated that when we come together, when they come together as a community, as a political body of leaders, that they can fix, they can revive these estuaries. So we need you to send the message today that we value the lagoon, that we are taking steps today to improve it, and that we will succeed as a community in restoring the Indian River Lagoon, its clean waters, with abundant seagrass, fish, birds, manatees, a place where our families can enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Carol Hamilton and Elizabeth Raidmaker, if you'd come forward, please, ma'am.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Carol Hamilton. I live in Suntree. I'm in favor of the moratorium. It is a good first step. The best step is to have the proper infrastructure in place, sewers, before development occurs. I previously owned a home with a septic system in another state. Even though it was pumped out on a regular basis, it would occasionally overflow, putting raw sewage onto the ground. When we had a party, we would have to rent a porta potty. Also, when a home was sold, the sale was subject to a successful health department inspection. Why is that not done here? There is no health department inspection prior to closing that I am aware of. We know what the problems with the lagoon are. We need to come up with the solutions. This moratorium is the beginning of a solution. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Elizabeth Raidmaker?
Good morning, Elizabeth Rademacher. I live in Grant. As a concerned homeowner, the numbers haven't came out on how much this new system will cost. I've been doing some research, and I found that a regular system costs anywhere between $8,000 to $10,000. A new system like this is going to cost anywhere between $16,000 to $25,000, which is a 2 to 3 times more of what a regular system costs. Also, you have to get an engineer to design it, which it has an additional cost there. And I believe it's every 2 years you have to pay for the health department to come out and inspect it, which is another fee. So I'm just wondering, everybody was talking about how much money for the fire department goes to, and I'm just wondering if you are concerned about the money that the homeowner has to pay out, which is almost 3 times more than a regular conventional system. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we've completed comment cards. Commissioners, do we have any discussion? Commissioner Tabaya.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just have a couple questions for Ms. Barker, with your indulgence.
Please, sir.
I was concerned initially about the lack of science underlying this moratorium, and I asked you in an email whether there was any peer-reviewed studies that supported it, and you said, quote, very few papers provide estimates of loading for certain distances. That was a week ago. I know you're on top of things. Have you found any additional data supporting the moratorium of septic tanks miles away from any body of water, since I got that information from your office.
So what the science is showing that past about 200 meters, we it becomes a non-point pollution source. So we can follow the plume until around 200 meters, and after that, we can't say that this nitrogen is coming from a specific plume. So we see the signatures of septic pollution. We just can't pinpoint where it's coming from.
Thank you. Just to follow up to that, and thank you for that explanation. I'm sorry I didn't catch your name.
My name's Anthony Gubler.
Anthony, thank you. After this 150 days, do you have a method in which you will be able to identify that plume? Its origin, I guess?
Yeah, so we've been working on a scope of work that we would implement, depending on your vote today, that would take the county and divide it up into 10-meter wide slices, different distances from the Indian River Lagoon or connections, tributaries and other connections to the lagoon. So, there would be a sliver of all septic systems between 30 and 40 meters from the lagoon, from 40 to 50 meters from the lagoon, 50 to 60, all the way out to 200 meters from the lagoon, and then another slice at 300 meters, another slice at 400 meters, another slice at 500 meters. And run that through a statistical Monte Carlo analysis using the state's septic modeling, approved septic model, to provide you that answer of how important are septic systems, how significant is the pollution coming from septic systems at those different distances.
Thank you. And on a different note, and thank you for that explanation, on a prior item dealing with fire fees, we had a number of individuals, in fact, I think all the individuals got up and they were concerned about regressive fees. In fact, one individual got up and talked about how $10 a year was a lot of money as she was living on a fixed income. I forgot. Can you help me? I think we had one speaker just come up here talk about her research. Can you let me know, based on your research, what the additional cost will be to a consumer to get the anaerobic versus the non-conventional? Or sorry, versus the conventional, I apologize.
Right, so as previously discussed, there are currently over 20 different technologies that are out there. And so depending on what the homeowner chooses, they could go with an ATU-based system or with a performance-based system. And so the NSF 245 certified ATUs cost about $9,000 to $15,000 to install, compared to the conventional that are in that 8 to 10,000, maybe even a little less if you're doing a whole community at once rather than one person at a time. So those systems do not have the delta that the last speaker brought up. It's the performance-based systems that are in that $18,000 to $25,000 cost bracket.
I'm sorry, I'm not great at math. My college didn't want people to transfer to Duke. What is that delta? Cause I imagine the regular consumer is going to say, while I'm looking at the most affordable option that will meet ordinance. What is that delta? Whether it's performance, whether it's non-performance, what is going to get me by, and how much is that going to be?
So at the least cost delta would be on the order of $4,000. It could go up significantly from there, depending on site constraints and owner interests.
Okay. So the best case scenario, thank you for doing the math for me, is additional cost of $4,000. We heard about regressive taxation. Would that $4,000 impact smaller homes the exact same way that it potentially would impact larger homes?
I haven't analyze that, but there's not the only thing that I can think of off the top of my head that would be different is that smaller homes with fewer bedrooms would require smaller systems. So the delta may be less for homes with fewer bedrooms, but I haven't asked the industry that. I haven't compared those costs.
Okay. But at a minimum, it would be $4,000. That to the smallest, most affordable home would be a $4,000 increase.
Approximately.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any more comments? Commissioner Zardy?
Yeah, I mean, I think I stated from the beginning, I'm not against some changes to our septic systems. What I'm concerned about is that if we go ahead with this and we install all these fancy new systems, which, oh, by the way, won't have the impact as repairing those broken systems that are probably causing most of the damage to the lagoon and the lack of sewer out to these systems, these old systems that probably should have had sewer a long time ago, is that we start putting in all these fancy systems in these newer homes, then that's going to become less of a focus, not just of the council, but maybe of future commissions. You know, I think, you know, back when we discussed this, I said we needed to prioritize sewer and a new sewer plant on Beachside. I didn't say only that, and I think that is a little misrepresented here. I just said that should be our priority. The fact that we rush through another plethora of projects where we have education and we hire more people and we're doing all these things instead of repairing the sewer that cost us to dump all of that sewage into the lagoon is concerning to me. So, you know, I won't apologize for being a little hesitant on jumping on this sewer kick because it feels good. I think that there are things that we can do, you know, in concurrence with one another, but I think that this board should take the leadership role and prioritize expanding sewer lines and expanding our sewer plants so we can handle the capacity so we don't have the dump into the lagoon. Because if you want to talk about pollution and nitrogen, that's it, when you start dumping millions of gallons of raw sewage into the lagoon. So that's always going to be my priority. It doesn't mean that anything else takes a back burner. It just, or everything else is a no. It just means that's where our focus needs to be now. And I think that if we put our time and effort into taking care of that and made that commitment, then I don't believe that these newer systems are going to matter quite as much or have the long-reaching and long-term impacts as much as if we're providing sewer service to these properties. So, again, I'm not going to support it because I think it's ill-organized, and I don't think you do a moratorium to find out if it's going to be beneficial. I think you focus on what's broken now, what we know is broken, what we're doing to harm the lagoons instead of helping it, and that's where our priority should be.
Commissioner Barfield?
Yeah, I'll kind of repeat what I said the first time when I brought this up. We need to take a pause. We need to make sure we have everything in order before we take any regulatory action. And I believe this is the best route to go. As one speaker said, you know, you stop digging the hole, you know, that's a good thing, a way of looking at it. We need to go ahead and do this. And like I've said before, action has not been taken on this, and it should have been done a long time ago. It should have been, I mean, I'd take it on. I should have done it a long time ago. But I actually think this is the best route to go. It'll give us a chance to look at all the regulatory opportunities, also working with the Department of Health, find out more information, and then bring this back, hopefully less than 150 days. But with that, I make the motion and we go ahead and pass this ordinance.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Smith.
Ms. Parker, you're talking about different distances, but really the distance we're really concerned about most is the first 50 meters from a tributary. Is that not correct? Because that's where the most detrimental influence is occurring from the seepage of nitrogen and phosphorus into the system?
Yes, there was one study in the southern lagoon that's the basis of what's in the lagoon plan, where they looked at systems that were within 50 meters of the lagoon and systems that were within 200 meters of the lagoon, and then everything that was further away than that. So right now, we only have distance in those three distance categories. If we had more information, finer slivers, then we might be able to optimize, you might be able to optimize your decision-making better than only having 3 bins. You know, do we need 50 meters, or is 30 or 40 meters enough? Or, you know, would 70 meters capture the majority of the benefit of the impacts of septic on the
When do you anticipate we're going to get this information?
It would be during the 150 days.
Okay. So, given that we know the proximity is important to the detriment of the Indian River Lagoon when we're talking about a septic system, anyone that's, I'm guessing now, not being a real estate expert, but I'm guessing that if someone lives within 50 meters of the Indian River Lagoon, it's probably a house and a property that's worth a considerable amount of money versus houses that are perhaps 80 to 200 meters away from a tributary. So I think that there's a responsibility that goes hand in hand with the ownership of that property, and this is my opinion, but there's a responsibility there. If you own a property within that distance and you don't have sewer, it's incumbent upon you to have the desire to do what you can as a single family homeowner to have a septic system that's going to protect the Indian River Lagoon. That would be my opinion. And I can say that I put my money where my mouth is, because when I was faced 12, 14 years ago with putting in a new septic system, I did my research, and nobody even heard of ATUs back in those days. But I saw what an ATU could do, and we didn't have this discussion about the Indian River Lagoon back in 02 or 03. And I opted to spend the extra $3,000 or $4,000. So it's not something that I take lightly, but I think it's important that people understand that if we're going to clean up this lagoon, we have to start taking responsibility for it.
Thank you, sir. We're going to all have to pay one way or the other, whether we're on septic or sewer. There's going to be more costs coming. We probably should have started this a while ago. We have a lot of old pipes underground that are leaking on our sewer system, and we have leaking septic systems, and we're going to have to start making these changes. We need water, and we're starting to have a water issue on top of a lagoon issue, so we have to do these things that's reasonable. I think we need to continue to change out the systems as much as we can. And on those items, we're allowed to use the lagoon funds, and we've started that. You know, we have a lot of those we've already done, and it's been great. We're doing a good job there. I think we need to work on getting the newer systems in. Municipalities in the county is probably, we're going to have increases in our sewer cost. From where I am, we've already increased it 15% over 6-year period of time to start lining the pipes. And the county's going to have to follow suit on that. And if we need to build new systems, we probably need, as users, pick up the cost of doing that. So it's not just the septic users that are going to be paying more. The sewer system are going to also, because we have got to take care of our waste. It's just the proper thing to do. So I think these are all good suggestions we've made up here, and they're things we do need to get working on. And so on that, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Passes 3-2 with Commissioners Isnardi and Tobiah in objection. Thank you for your passion and love of our community. And I'm going to call a 10-minute break here, and we'll come back.
Hey, any trouble?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And we made a request for Commissioner Tobias if we could move the item miscellaneous F1 to Thursday night, and he agreed to it. But I do have 2 cards. So if you'd still like to speak on the DACA issue, if you'd like to stay, we'll go ahead and let you bring your comments. But we're going to be hearing that item on Thursday night, and that meeting starts at 5. We're going to move into unfinished business, and we're going to start with the Jetty Park follow-up, and that would be county manager.
Actually, that item, the county attorney's office was asked to come up with a variety of options. I would say, though, before she speaks, that I did just want to let you know that I did have some discussion with the CEO from the port, who had some dialogue based on our natural resources director, Virginia Barker, looking at some port property related to muck removal, and is there any ability to use any of that property? But those are only in very, very preliminary discussions going on right now. But I'd like to turn it over to Eden to discuss the options that the board asked her to put together.
Thank you. Ms. Bentley.
So your options, you've got 3 big categories. You can sell the property, you can eject the port or remove the port, or you can negotiate with the port. We've provided you with, in subsection 2, Roman numeral 2, a variety of subsections to each of those categories. Depending on which route you want to take, the details can be refined according to the board's direction. With that information from Mr. Abate, you do have opportunities for exchanges of property with real estate. I have not explored that in this report. That might be something that could be addressed in some way if the port were willing and the county was interested in that option.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners? Commissioner Smith?
Well, in view of the fact that the port is in our county, many of the commissioners are acquaintances and or friends of mine. I don't want to create some kind of hostile atmosphere between the two of us, and I think it would behoove both bodies, both boards, to come together and do some face-to-face negotiation, friendly negotiation. And I fully understand that sometimes friendly situations can become unfriendly, but at the end of the day, you're still friends. It's one thing to have a disagreement, but it's another thing to be disagreeable. And I think we have mature people on both boards that can sort those differences out, and I think that would be the appropriate first step.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Barfield?
Well, first, I need to back up a little bit and explain the issues with this. I think we paid $862,000 for this back in the late 80s. That was bought with beach and riverfront referendum dollars.
Yes.
Beach and riverfront referendum dollars were voted on by the taxpayer. The tax themselves to buy beach and riverfront, and this was part of it. So the port at this point does not want to pay what we paid for it without any markup for inflation. We offered them to $862,000. I can't remember the exact number. Yet they don't want to pay it. They don't think it's worth it. They don't want to do that. Well, the problem with that is this: that the taxpayer paid that. If you sell that to them at a lesser price, then the taxpayer is actually paying for the port, and there is no taxpayer money going towards the port. But it gets even more than that. There's been discussions just lately about using that money for something else, using it for the lagoon. If they pay us for it, they would be able to tell us where to spend that money, and that's like selling your house, and the ones that tell you what to do with it, to buy it. We tell them what to do with their house once they buy it. That's not the way it works. So the point is this: we've done everything we can. We are not taking any more money than what we paid for it. Now, they've done work to that property, but they've added a retention pond and a road that doesn't really affect us. It's not, in fact, the retention pond services other areas than what our property would be. So this is where I am at this. I know that there's a possibility we could sell this. We could sell the property, probably make more money. But I want to give one more effort to them, to let them, while we're on a break, because let them know that we're very serious about selling this property. We want the port to have it, but if they turn it down, there's other opportunities. Now, I do have a question for legal. If we would sell this property to someone, a company, a corporation, whatever, and their access is cut off because it's landlocked, could they make a Bert Harris claim against the port?
I don't think so. That's a proprietary issue, not a regulatory issue.
Well, if the port denies them access.
There may be ways that they can go after the port, but those would be private actions.
Absolutely.
Right.
But I just want to throw that out there on the record.
Right. And there may be implied ways of necessity out there. It may depend on who purchases the property, who may have rights next door, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Or down the road. I don't know all the different access points to all the parcels in the area, and you'd have to research that.
Okay.
Commissioner Tabaya.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to add a little bit to what Commissioner Barfield had said. The port, in my opinion, insulted this board when they came back with an appraisal of $192,000 on beachfront property. Our property appraiser values it at 9 times that amount. We have an appraisal a couple years old, and we know the market's gone up in the last couple years at $2.4 million. If I had my druthers, I would pull back the $862 offer. But I think, first of all, I want to commend County Attorney Eden Bentley and her staff for coming up with some action items in such a quick time. I know there had to be quite a bit of title work that needed to be done on this, and looking at both state statute and county ordinance. But I'm willing to give the port a little more time, but I think we need to have all our ducks in a row. And board action number 2 directs staff to advertise and put the property out to bid subject to all existing conditions, letting the purchaser know that there is a holdover tenant, there may be some access issues. What this would not do is require us to sell it, but this would allow us to get a fair market value. If we were talking a difference of 10 or 20%, maybe we could negotiate that 10 or 20%. But I'm going to go with our appraiser, who valued it again at, what is that, more than 10 times the amount. And while I think we have some great folks up here, I don't think we have the negotiation skills to increase the port by a factor of 10. So I think that my suggestion, my motion would be to go with option 2, direct staff to advertise and put the property out to bid subject to all conditions, with the understanding that this provides us with a better bargaining chip. If the port really does believe it's worth $192,000, the port could bid $192,000. And if they were the high bid, they would receive my vote, to get it for that market rate. But again, this does not obligate us to sell it. It just gets us a fair market value. So if we choose to go into negotiation, we actually know what it is. Again, county, $2.4 million. The port, $192,000. This is a grave difference. How do we solve it? Very simply, we let the market determine that, and that's what option 2. So once everyone's done giving their opinion, I certainly would like to have a motion for option 2, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Isnardi?
Yeah, I would agree with Commissioner Barfield that, this is property that was bought for by tax dollars. So I think we have to be conscious of that. And I think, the back and forth and, what's public and what those conversations that aren't so public with the Port Commissioners, it has been insulting. The fact that they don't even want to pay what we paid for it is sort of ridiculous. And the fact that they want to do land trades and tell us what we do, or proceeds, what we can do with those monies is just beyond me. So I'm up for selling the property or putting it out to bid. And if that's the wish of the majority of the board, I would support that.
Thank you, ma'am. I love our port. I love what they're doing. I love the tourism coming through, and I would love to continue a good relationship with them. A question, when we first bought it for $862,000, was that number brought about because it was the market cost of the property at the time?
It was purchased and it was condemned. There were a number of out parcels that had to be condemned. So you had some additional costs because of the condemnation. I believe the other parcels, they were negotiated purchases. We had appraisals on them. It was basically fair market value. There was no,
Okay.
It was arm's length for all the purchases.
So my point I'm trying to create here with the question is we didn't overvalue it when we bought it. It wasn't worth $192,000 at the time. It was probably, okay.
No, ma'am.
So I think Commissioner Barfield made some great points, and we have a fiduciary duty to the Brevard County citizens to not lose money on things that we've purchased in their behalfs. And on that note, we probably should be doing the accelerated future value number on the dollar amount we spent. But again, I would love to have good relations with the port. So I really would hope that, genuinely good attitudes would rise to the top here, and there would be the negotiation to just, it's all Brevard County citizens. So, I don't know, it's common sense in my head. So I'm hoping for that outcome. So on all that, I will entertain a motion from the commission.
I would recommend that the board look at the items which require supermajority votes versus simple majority votes as they're making their decision.
Yes, ma'am. So you would let us know if we made one what it would require. Yes, sir. Do I have a commissioner that would like to make a motion? We have one. Oh.
Yeah, Commissioner Dwyer has a motion on the floor.
Okay. He said he wanted to make a motion. So that's why.
No, subject.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's why I kept asking if you're ready to make a motion.
Is it possible we could do by a certain date if we haven't worked this out, that we go ahead and advertise? Because we're going to be out for a month.
Yes, if you get a supermajority vote, yes.
Okay, Commissioner Isnardi
So-
just had a good question. How would we determine if we got something to work out?
If they want to buy it at the price we ask,
Cost.
yeah, at cost. If not, then it was out to bid.
So that's the only option, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Tobias.
I think Commissioner Barfield's got a great idea. We come up with a gap period here. I don't want to wait entire June. Just a quick question for the county manager. You sent over that offer, I believe, where you said you 800. How long ago do you recall did we send that?
Within the last month, I sent a second letter. That second letter reiterated the offer and indicated that I did not see and did not believe that the nominal lease was a viable option. So the first letter, I believe, was at least 60 to 90 days ago, and the last was within 30 to 45 days.
Okay, so we've tendered an offer 3 months ago. We put that offer out there again within the last month or two. I think Commissioner Barfield is correct. We give them one final opportunity because in fairness, it's going to take us some time to put together this in order to advertise it. So do we know when the next port meeting is?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that if you could make it just a short time period after their next meeting, that way they have the full opportunity.
Do we know
we're
when that-
looking at that right now.
You know?
Do a week following the next board meeting. 7 days.
Well, I'm not sure that we need to know the date right now. We can just say the next board meeting.
Yeah.
Their next board meeting.
That, so let me make
10 days after the next.
Okay. So I would like to make a motion on option 2, direct staff to advertise, put the property out to bid subject to all conditions at a time 10 days past the next port.
Sorry, Commissioner. May 30th is their next meeting.
Okay.
And they have June 27th and no meeting in July.
On June 9th, 10 days
On June 9th. And in the meantime, staff can work to put the advertisement ready, so we're ready to drop it the following day. That would be my motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. This does require a supermajority. I have a motion on the floor. Commissioner Tobias, second by Commissioner Barfield. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, we're going to move into item C. I'm going to go ahead and do the CRA. Do we have anybody here? We don't. So
On this particular item, Commissioners, is an amendment to the interlocal agreement with the City of Melbourne. Pleased to report that we were successful in having very productive exchange with both the city manager and the city engineer. And this item relates to drainage underneath Babcock during the period of time after we entered into the interlocal agreement. There was video taken of that drainage system, which saw problems in that system. And through efforts between both parties, we came up with this amendment to the interlocal agreement, which would extend the CRA for 1 year and would dedicate the funds, the county CRA dollars, relative to the lining and other improvements needed in that drainage system to assure it working well over time. And the city and the county came up with this language in such a way that we would be splitting costs for the repairs that occurred, and any dollars that are left would be dedicated for any overruns that relate to the project, the county dollars from the county TIF payment related to that. So we are hopeful that we wanted to bring it back to the board today so that we could keep this project moving forward, because it's important to the city, it's important to the county, and for everyone who drives on Babcock.
thank you, sir. I have no cards on this item. What's the commission's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I second the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 2-1 with Commissioner Tavai in opposition. No. Okay, we'll move into item B now.
Commissioners, we wanted to bring back to you a updated draft of BCC 5 workplace violence policy. We took direction provided when you first approved the policy at the last board meeting and included some updates to the language, some additional changes, and we just bring the policy back before you now for your approval.
Thank you, sir. I think it's great piece of work. So, Commission, any? Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 3-0. Oh, I had one card on the item. Mr. Stasek, would you like to come speak, sir?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I did too.
There's two of us and one of us is both missed it.
No problem. I'm Phil Stasek, the Space Coast Progressive Alliance. I live in North Merritt Island, Florida. It has been suggested that it is a good idea for the rank and file county employees to be carrying weapons while at work. It is not. Weapons, specifically guns, do not de-escalate conflict. The truth is that all of our county employees face conflict at work on a regular basis, sometimes on a daily basis. Adding a gun to a conflict does not make things safer. It does not make things safer for the employees themselves, nor does it make it safer for those of us that are citizens of the county or visitors. Having a gun in an equation can escalate a simple shouting match or shoving match into a deadly incident. Allowing or even encouraging employees, the rank and file employees, to have guns at work, I believe, increases the risk to all of us. Now, you might argue that, frankly, we have a Second Amendment right to carry weapons, and why should we take that away from people when they're at work? The truth is that we also, the rest of us, have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When someone with a weapon takes away a life, that is clearly a conflict of our rights. So I ask you, anything that you can do to step away from this type of policy, I ask you to do it. The Space Coast Progressive Alliance believes that guns are the problem, not the solution. Do you have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Oh, please.
Mr. Stasek, first I just want to thank you because even though oftentimes we don't agree on many issues, you're always extremely respectful and you always offer something to the dialogue. Respectfully, I would have to disagree for obvious reasons. I mean, you're assuming that a concealed weapons carrier or someone that has a permit is not responsible. And I caution you that you are among concealed weapons carrier people all the time that carry weapons that you're not aware of. And for me at least, I feel safer if somebody in my office has their concealed weapon with them because of the times we live in, because there is an unstable environment in this world and people get angry. But I would much rather have somebody at work there or protect somebody myself with a concealed weapon than not have it. So, I mean, I think this is a great policy change, and I think you have to have more faith in people. The people that are concealed carry permit holders are responsible people. People that are active shooters and that shoot up a workplace aren't law-abiding citizens. So I guess we'll respectfully disagree.
We'll agree to disagree. It is one of the great debates of our time. And as they say, all politics is local, right? So it comes down to our school board and our county commission to be debating gun laws, which really should be settled at a higher level, should have been settled long ago. The truth is, we all recognize that there's a problem. We have a real problem in this country. You know, children are being murdered in schools, and that attracts attention. But the picture is so much larger. In my experience, when you add a weapon to a conflict situation, it just escalates it. You know, I'm a retired airline pilot, and they trained us over and over and over again. And when you're in an aluminum tube and you have to face people, and there will undoubtedly be conflicts. I mean, there really are. There are conflicts all the time. You're trained to de-escalate that situation. It's very, very hard to control a situation when a gun is involved. We could sit here and talk all day long, right? But the truth is, adding a weapon adds an additional variable to a situation, to a conflict situation, that you don't want to have there. People shout, people have conflicts, people get into fistfights routinely. It used to be quite common, right? And when somebody that's in a face-to-face, hand-to-hand fight feels the necessity to defend themselves, they'll go to that weapon. But indeed, we'll have to agree to disagree. And thank you so much.
You
I
should
appreciate
have more faith in people because
I do agree. By the way, I want to thank you for giving me the voice, the opportunity to come before you to speak. And I do have faith, and I have confidence. And indeed, I have family members, friends who are concealed carry folks. But I wish we could do better than this. I think we're better.
And I wish
people
everyone
than
had
this.
the right to defend themselves no matter where they went. And hopefully this policy will help us get there.
Well, thank you very much again
Thank
for
you.
listening to me.
Okay, that finishes the unfinished business. And I lost the county manager.
Losing everybody.
Chair?
I would like to move the CBO to Thursday night also.
Perfect. Yep.
I think we are I think it will be fully staffed that night. So, and then Commissioner Tobias, you also are good with your item too. So we'll move all of the new business, but I do have 2 cards.
Yes.
Yes. So if Gail Meredith would like to come forward and speak, or if you'd like to speak Thursday night when we hear the item, we outlasted Gail. Okay. And Sanjay Patel, would you like to speak today, sir? Okay, most certainly.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Sanjay Patel. I live at 315 Jackson in Satellite Beach. I was a year old when my family arrived in America. My parents didn't have any money, they didn't know the language, and they actually didn't have the right papers to remain in this country. It was President Reagan that gave our family a pathway to citizenship. And I'm beyond grateful to be an American. Because of my story, I identify deeply with the dreamers. I wonder, brought here as a toddler, what would I do now if you tried to deport me to a country that I don't know? If Reagan hadn't made it possible for me to become a citizen, I can't imagine the hell, the limbo that I'd be in right now, stuck between a place of my home and a place that I don't know anyone. They don't know me. It's a foreign country to me. Last year, I found a note in my parents' basement. It was for a donation they had made in 1989 to the Ellis Island Foundation. Back then, $200 was a ton of cash for my family. It said that my family's names had been recorded on the American Immigrant Wall of Honor. It said that it would serve as a testament to the heroism and triumphs our family experienced in coming to America for the first time. That the many thousands of visitors who would come to Ellis Island each year would recognize and respect our family's role in fulfilling the American dream of hope, freedom, and opportunity for all. This is our American story. We are the destination of dreamers, the land of opportunity, the world's melting pot. Anything that this commission does to threaten dreamers, our most vulnerable immigrants who came to this country as children without their knowledge or their consent, sends a message to the world and to all of us that we've drifted from our fundamental American values and from our proud history as a nation of immigrants. And what do we have to lose by protecting the dreamers? Absolutely nothing. They contribute $2 billion a year in taxes. They're ineligible for American social programs, including cash assistance, food stamps, and Medicaid, and their incarceration rate is less than 1%, lower than those that are born here in this country. It was actually Ronald Reagan who coined the phrase, "Make America Great Again," in a speech about immigrants. He said, these families came here to work. They came to make America work. They didn't ask what this country could do for them, but what they could do to make this refuge the greatest home of freedom in history. They brought with them courage, ambition, and the values of family, neighborhood, work, peace, and freedom. They came from different lands, but they shared the same value, the same dream. Reagan believed that immigrants and an administration that supports them would truly make America great again. By fighting against DACA, you are destroying that dream for many and destroying America as the destination of dreamers and for all of us and for the world. I hope no one will support this agenda that, in addition to being un-American, detracts from this commission's ability to focus on the important issues in our county that are your job, like our county services, our roads, and our lagoon. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. We are moving into public comments. Ms. Eaton, guys, are we going to have the, yeah,
It is
We can do it
scheduled.
with 3?
Yes, you can do it with 3.
Okay, just checking. Okay, so we have some public comment cards. Okay. Sarah Ann Conklin.
This is a marathon, so I thank you all, the survivors. This is like Survivor County Commission edition. So thank you all for remaining here. I'm here because we have not had a lot of public hearing on the public budget, which is going to be finalized with department heads next month and finally presented as a tentative millage rate in July. This is the first year I've noticed that we haven't had a lot of workshops for the budget and a lot of transparency. So I just want to convey some budgetary priorities that I would hope the commission would consider this time around that are important not only to me, but I think I'm speaking for the majority of our local Democratic Party, which I'm governmental affairs chair for. So I would like to speak about 3 things which also relate to the poor, but also relate to other citizens in our county who would benefit. The first thing is there's an automatic cut scheduled for this year for the Community Action Agency, which is the only agency that prevents homelessness of the poor in our county. It was scheduled last year. It was put back in at the 11th hour because we had a hurricane, and it's scheduled for immediate elimination this year. We would like that money put back permanently in the budget, please, so that we don't put more vulnerable Brevardians out on the street. This is the poorest of the poor of our county, and someone needs to speak for them in terms of our budgetary priorities. Number 2 is we had some library hours that were cut 9 or 10 years ago as part of a real horrible budget year in which we had to make some really painful cuts. And this item, I think, is pretty much revenue neutral. It's just an item that needs board direction for any new revenue to be used to restore those hours to the library. I think our citizens would really appreciate having our libraries open more, not just the poor families that depend on the internet access and for the entertainment options, but our libraries are full and bustling with activity of people who love the library. So please consider doing that. And last but not least, we need a transit plan, which is not an embarrassment to our county. We only contribute $3.21 per capita to public transportation in this county. Volusia County contributes $22.44 per capita for public transportation. We are an embarrassment. We need $4 million of additional local money to even make our transit system come into some semblance of respectability. So I would request the board, instead of just throwing an extra peanut in this year, to please think about a longer-term plan to get us to an acceptable level of funding for our public transportation and to make that part of your budgetary planning this year. Thanks very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Karen Moser. Karen Moser. Janice Gregory.
I'm Janice Gregory, and I still live in Cocoa. And thank you for allowing us to speak. And I want to add a few comments to what Sarah Ann has already added to. First of all, in 2017, I attended the wonderful and educational Brevard County Citizens Academy. It is something I highly recommend because they take you through county government. They take you through the budgets, the personnel, what is expected of them. It is incredibly educational. And I learned how our county government works and sometimes doesn't work because we don't have enough money. So I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to go against, with great respect, with Commissioner Tobias and say, take the unpopular stand that we need to increase taxes because we are losing wonderful employees on a regular basis. Our firefighters, for example, are making $11.45 an hour. That's ridiculous. So I urge you to at least consider that unpopular thought. That being said, I'm just going to add on to a couple of the asks that Sarah Ann has mentioned. One is our libraries. Right the moment, I live in Cocoa, and we have the Central Library, and it's only open until 7 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which means that school kids who have parents who work don't have access to the library 3 days a week. And I think that that's a great disservice to our children. And the other thing is the adding the $185,000 back for the homeless. There are children and families that are deeply, deeply affected by this, and it is a shame. It is just shameful that we are not taking care of these underserved population. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Catherine Ely, I just want to throw out this. I hear this all the time. The 1145 is kind of, we have no firefighters making $24,000 a year. They're not making that small amount. Not that they're not wonderful and we shouldn't pay them, but that got started going around and it's really not truthful. So I just wanted to make that comment. Brevard County isn't paying poverty amounts to their firefighters. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Catherine Ely, and I still live in Diana Shores, Merritt Island. And may I ask, is Commissioner Barfield going to come back because he is the head of my district?
Ma'am, he wasn't feeling well, and we made him stick it out a little longer than he almost could make it.
Well, I'll
so
tell you my story, and
you can give him a call, and they
well,
take,
I have
Liz is right there, and she'd be glad to get information for you.
And then you'll have another meeting here Thursday night?
We will.
Okay, great. Maybe I could come back. But I'll just say that I live in an area near Diana Boulevard that's, and between Diana Boulevard and a narrow canal, and then the other north side of it is Florida Boulevard. They allow hunting during the months of December and January. At Christmas time, this past Christmas time, when my son-in-law took my new granddaughter baby outside to comfort her because she was crying a lot around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, he went out in the backyard, which should be safe. It's our backyard. It's all fenced in. We're on the water. And he heard what he thought were bullets flying over his head. You can hear it tearing through the air. Now, they're supposed to use pellet guns, which, in my opinion, if you get shot in the wrong place, it could be devastating. People that in my neighborhood say that their docks and their seawalls can be covered in shell casing from like either bullets or pellets that they find on there, covered. I don't see how the right of someone who wants to hunt is greater than my right and my new granddaughter right to survive or not be injured by someone who may not be obeying the law of using the proper type of weapon to hunt. I don't see how this could turn out well if someone were injured, the county, because of course there's going to be a lawsuit eventually. Maybe this was put into effect before this was a populated area. And that's why I do need to speak to Commissioner Barfield. There are other areas that are far less populated on Merritt Island should someone want to hunt. But this is allowed for approximately 2 months out of the year, December and January. It's done at dawn. Apparently, mostly they want to hunt ducks. There are other places you can duck hunt, and I just don't understand. And why is it going to take someone getting shot? Or someone's pet, my dog, whatever. But you can literally hear it tearing through the air at dawn. If you want to just stand outside and see the sunrise, you can't. You can't safely do that. How is this okay? You know, we need to prioritize the safety and the lives of our residents over someone's right to hunt in a populated area. We can make that safer. We can even do it just a few miles north on Merritt Island. So I will come back and speak to Commissioner Barfield. He knows the area. But I want to present that thought to you. And thank you for staying OT here and hearing all of us.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Tabaya.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I wanted to make comment to the last couple speakers, Ms. Conklin and I'm sorry, Janice Gregory. First of all, thanks for showing up. You guys do a very good job. And Mr. Sasek, kudos to the Progressive and the Democratic Party for always showing up. You don't see the opposing party here, so you guys pay attention. I just wanted to give heads up. You talked about budget on our Thursday meeting on the agenda. I'm sure you know this, but I wanted, so you could get this out, though, is the Children's Service Council millage. That will be up. So I certainly hope that you guys show up on Thursday. This is an opportunity for millions of dollars that would go into those type of services. So I'm sorry you don't feel it's as transparent, but I think if you get in contact with any of us, even the two that aren't here, we would be more than willing to share immediately whatever we have. But please definitely do show up for Thursday's meeting. Right now it's on the agenda. I don't know whether it'll transpire, but the Children's Service Council is something that voluntary millage or that potential millage could be something that would be millions of dollars into some of the programs that it sounds like you are very concerned about.
Okay, thank you. We are at board reports. Ms. Bentley?
I have no report except we have an executive session at the end.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Abate?
No report.
Commissioner Isnardi?
No report.
Commissioner Tabaya?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And a fellow commissioner brought to light an email that came out, and I greatly appreciate him taking the time and going as far to read that. So if you're watching this and you did not receive that email, you are more than willing to contact my office, and I would be more than willing to send out all information, no matter how factual. It is 100% factual on that, and we would be more than willing to get you on that list. That was an oversight on our part if you did not receive it. And again, I appreciate getting out as much information to as many people as possible for no cost.
Okay, I have no report. I need to read this. I have to read all of this? Oh my goodness.
For a motion.
Okay. As authorized by Section 286.0118 Florida statutes, the Brevard County Board of County Commissioners will now commence private attorney-client meeting discussing settlement negotiations and/or strategy related to litigation and expenditures in case of Price versus Brevard County, case number 618CV428, ORL 22DCI, and Gill versus Brevard County, case number 618CV642, ORL 28-DCI. The names of the persons attending the client attorney private meeting will be Rita Pritchett, County Commission District 1, John Tabaya, County Commission District 3, Christine Isnardi, County Commission District 5, Frank Abate, County Manager, Eden Bentley, County Attorney, Shannon Wilson, Assistant County Attorney, Michael J. Roper, Esquire, Bell and Roper, PA, Outside Counsel for Brevard County, Florida, Frank M. Mare, Esquire, Bell and Roper, PA, Outside Counsel for Brevard County, Florida, Margaret Eddy, King Reporting Services, Inc., Court Reporter. The attorney-client private meeting will be held in the County Manager's Conference Room, 3rd floor, Building C, at the Brevard County Government Operations Center, 2725, Judge Fran Jameson Way, Vieira, Florida. The estimated length of the attorney-client session is for 1 hour or less. I will now entertain a motion to temporarily adjourn and reconvene in the County Manager's Conference Room. I have a motion by Commissioner Isnardi, second by Commissioner Tabaya. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We will now adjourn. Yes. Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.